And the fact that it's, I guess it's serving up, I guess what we wanted is why I guess in some ways I'm we can sometimes be unsatisfied about it is because like, oh yeah, well this was this next step was obvious. Like this was a natural progression. Of course we were going to get this, but how are we not 10 steps beyond it? It's like you said, the drip feed is sort of tricking us into thinking that we're not making progress when it again progress is light speed. And to think that I'm already not bored, but already looking for whatever the next thing is, where 10 years ago Aaron would have been again marveling at the things that I have available to, I mean, maybe not even 10 years, 15 years ago Aaron, marveling at the things that I have. Heck, just the computer that I have right now. Old Aaron would have died to have the PC that I'm running currently and the
I
things that I can generate on the screen right in front of me.
I have three monitors in front of me. I have
Such luxury.
I
Yeah.
have the one I'm talking, talking the camera,
Mm.
essentially camera and chat gang monitor and audio levels monitor. I have the running stuff in the background monitor off over here to the side, and then if I were playing a video game, then this one over here becomes like, this one becomes chat or whatever, and this is usually just something relevant to the conversation, notes.
Mm.
I mean, I don't take notes. Don't this is all off the cuff. This is how if I ever tell people I take notes, then they'll know that this is me polished, and the mystique is broken.
And then what does unpolished look like? God,
Oh my god, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. No, those are the magical Mr. Mephisto music streams like Friday nights when I get like wine drunk and play like '90s punk rock or whatever.
Spin in the chair.
Yeah, yeah. Spin in the chair. There you go. Yeah. Um, let's see. Tomb King Tristan showing up. Wait, he looks like that.
You've seen me before, Tristan. I'm certain of it.
Artorias popping in here, and well, I'm going to do the intro first, and then we'll get to some chat
Talking about
questions because we already got some stuff
talking
going on here. Yeah,
talking about these shells
yeah,
right
yeah.
here.
He's talking about those shelves. Yeah, so I am, of course, the magical Mr. Mephisto, the most dangerous man in Age of Sigmar, your loquacious Lich King, taking you on a journey through all of the adjacent topics to this wonderful game we call Warhammer. I'm joined tonight by the man, the myth, the legend. I don't know how to pronounce Dosaceos.
Just gonna say, what is he gonna say? It's just Dosaceos. His name's Aaron, so it's got two A's in it.
Yeah.
And some kids in high school at one point were trying to Spanish up my name, so Dos Ace Os, and it stuck.
Oh,
That's how we do it.
that's brilliant. Already hitting us with like a freaking rant or a little rabbit hole off the back or off the bat.
Mm.
I love that. So you're of course from the Mortal Realms podcast, the best damn narrative podcast in the world. Get at me at mr_meph and follow the Mortal Realms podcast at the Mortal Realms. I believe, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
about it.
yeah. Y'all got to it. You got to it first. Uh,
Yeah, right.
You didn't
They
have
were
to
one of
spell
the
it with like
first.
in ASCII or with like letters and numbers interchanged. Like
We
just
actually had at Mortal Realms, and we made a conscious decision to change it to the Mortal Realms so it matched the website. So
mistake.
we could have kept that. Yeah, right. It wasn't up to me at the time, so I might not have done it. But
Where did you hide Eric's body, you monster? On Instagram. Eric is on it. Like he has transcended this corporeal form, and he makes art on Instagram. Is like where I've
yeah,
been tracking him.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's on Instagram. I play D&D with him every week, and well, and now Soulbound with him every other week. So I see him multiple times. He's still alive for sure.
Oh, okay. Like it's not like Eric bot. Like no.
Oh yeah, well, I mean it is all remote, so it very well could be, I guess. But I mean his computer, not to call him out, his computer is actually really slow, and so if it is a bot, I don't know how it would run him. So yeah, I doubt it. I think it's probably him in real life.
It's probably him in real life. Right on. You'd like to follow? I don't. I follow him on on Instagram, which is where like I see him working on like kind of going back to his. I mean, I'm not going to speak for the man. I don't talk to him, certainly not twice a week and not very often. But from like this sort of outsider perspective and seeing him kind of like going back to his like art roots and getting and just sort of like
Yeah.
broadly and that's been really cool because well, you sound like you had a thought on that or something.
Well, no, just that it's he's always had kind of a business mind as well, and so he's always looking for ways to kind of combine the two. He started a few companies in the past, and I know he's also trying to venture out and start something new. The pandemic gave him let's call it an opportunity to
Yeah.
reinvent some things, and I
Yeah.
think that's what he was trying to focus on.
I think I mean that actually kind of is a great sort of first topic for the regarding the mortal realms and stuff, because I think the pandemic did give a lot of us time to sort of reevaluate our lives. Honestly, I think that is the silver lining of once in a century global pandemic that's killed millions of people. But
Let's glass half full this thing, man.
yeah,
Let's do it.
yeah, glass half full. But like reassessing like our relationship with work, I think has been a big importance.
Yeah.
Reassessing our relationship with our families, like what
Mhm.
role and you know healthy levels of detachment and or engagement with our family. Like I think that all that stuff's been very good for the
Yeah.
quote unquote. We were talking a little bit off air there about like the soul. When I say soul, I don't mean like a Dyfic sense. As metal
Mhm.
as it would be to just be a ghost in your body, that's awesome. Like if that's
Controlling your
yeah, it's
flesh
like a
robot.
mech. Yeah, if that's what you believe, that's super metal. No judgment here. But just this sort of like essence of this the personhood you intuit beyond all the you know dopamine chasing and
Hmm.
animal lizard brain type stuff, right? Like that whatever that consciousness might be. Um,
Sure.
so like no, I think we sort of on an individual level had an opportunity to kind of reconnect with our soul, and I think the next step is sort of reconnecting with others. But like Mortal Realms kind of went in a little bit of a hiatus, as I think a lot of us did, and then y'all kind of
Yeah.
yeah. So you want
Mhm.
to what how did that affect the Mortal Realms and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Because
Good
as I
question.
said, the best lore podcast, and I know
That can't be true. I mean, I
absolutely.
don't, but I can't think of any better, but I don't know that that's true. Um, so how did it affect? So I mean, honestly, it simply, or maybe in a very boring way, it just gave me a chance to pause for a second. And honestly, I'd pause not for any like a hobby based read. Okay, so let's take a step back. What was it looking just before? What was it looking like just before the pandemic? We were recording our show still monthly, and we do it monthly now too. But in
Soulbound, you're getting ready to
person.
kick off a Soulbound campaign too.
Oh
Like,
yeah, we were gonna do that. So man, that's what it was. Is maybe there's a lot of big ideas that were about to maybe come to fruition, and it made me, I guess, pause or delay or flat out cancel a lot of the dreams. Whether it's because we weren't doing things in person anymore, not that the Soulbound would have been. It was tricky because I had so many kids right now, and by that I just had two at the time. I now have three, but two is so many kids. Sorry, anybody who has more than two kids. Um, and that they were at home, like daycare and schools were canceled, and so like as long as my boss isn't looking. I do a lot of my hobby stuff like during the day when I should be working, but like when your kids are around, you can't really do that, and so that eats up a lot of what I'm gonna call it free time. It's not free time. I'm getting paid. But so that was also some issues, at least on my end.
as a dirty lefty potential anarchist, I respect you stealing precious time back from the corporate overlords.
I,
This is what
I,
we do.
I, I've worked from home even long before the pandemic, but they say you're always supposed to poop on company time. But I'm already at my house, so like I got to find other ways to do the metaphorical
Yeah,
bathroom break on company time.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. That's just
so
that is just based and left pilled. Poop on company time. Get paid for your poop, everybody.
yeah, right. It's just efficient and cost effective.
Right.
Um, and I feel like I'm losing the thread a little bit, but we paused for both. I had lost a little bit of free time during the day, and I was kind of quarterbacking at least the story phase. Some of the other shows on our network, and we've got a fair number of them, did similar pauses, maybe at different timings during the pandemic. And then also just because there was a delay of releases, not that we are necessarily release chasers on any of our shows, which is to say we don't necessarily keep up with any of the given releases, but just the fact that things weren't coming out sort of slowed down both I think our and other people's enthusiasm. And that if GW was going to pause their releases, it gave us a second to maybe catch our breath and also pause as well. So it was sort of I don't want to say mutual. GW doesn't think about me at all, but it was sort of a mutual, a reciprocal breather while we
Yeah.
waited for things to pick back up. But there was no intrinsic reason why it needed to stop. And so once the releases picked back up and I got my feet underneath me, schools opened up and things like that.
Hmm.
It in some ways, and I hate to admit this because, like you said, a lot of people have passed away from this pandemic. It has ruined many, many lives. After a couple months, my life was exactly the same. Again, I was already working from home. I'm already kind of a little bit of a hermit. And so all the temporary roadblocks where a lot of people have permanent roadblocks. All the temporary roadblocks I had were lifted, and we were able to pick back up. And my co-hosts are all very, whether they're accommodating or they're afraid of me, were willing to jump back up on
I don't think
the
Paul's
ride.
afraid of you.
No, Paul's not afraid of anything, but
Not-
they were willing to join back up,
yeah.
with the exception of Eric, who had sort of gone in a different direction. He not that he doesn't want to be in the hobby, but he wants to focus on things that he can do in the here and now, and then set down and like leave and go back to doing whatever he has to do professionally or at home. He's got a family too.
Mhm.
So that's what the great thing about RPGs, D&D and Soulbound is that you can be in the moment, and then when it's over, and you can go. You're not constantly painting stuff or building things out, or God forbid reading a book because he hates reading books,
Yeah.
which is odd that he was on a story phase. What's going on with that?
No, I don't know. No, it's for the dialectics of it. You got to have the opposing viewpoints, and then you'll find the actual the arbitration of truth lands in between because you've known the opposites that exist.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay, that's a good way to look at it.
yeah, yeah. No, just say dialectics. Most people won't know what you mean anyway.
So just nod and smell. Oh yeah, sure.
um, what do we got going on here?
What are they saying?
Yeah, we got calling out your shelves. Question for the mortal citizen: did he intentionally match his mic and headphones?
I don't know that they match per se. Let's take a look. I mean, they're not. I mean, like brand wise, they don't match. I guess maybe aesthetically.
Uh-huh.
I suppose. Actually, these are my worst headphones. It's just my good ones. No one cares, Aaron, but they squeeze my ears too tight when I'm wearing a hat.
Yeah, I've got the These are actually These are same headset sportscasters use. Um,
Oh, nice.
so they're essentially designed to be worn with a baseball cap because
Oh, that would make sense with the sports stuff. Yeah.
yeah. Um,
I haven't had headsets because all my recording stuff we used to record in person, so they're all just freestanding XLR mics.
mhm.
But if we're gonna keep doing remote, which I think we're going to, I should probably think about getting a headset.
Yeah.
There's a thought.
Yeah, there you go. I actually it's weird because I want to like it's a grass is always greener thing. Um, I I had a freestanding USB. I upgraded to XLR, and I had that moment where like, all right, I'm gonna jump into XLR to get a
Hmm.
better sound quality. Um, Now is the time. If I'm gonna drop X dollars, um, like I'm either gonna
XLR dollars.
yeah,
What?
yeah. Ooh, nice based. Ooh, I love that the puns like have migrated over from the Mortal Realms.
Wherever you are, that's or
yeah,
wherever we are.
yeah,
The moral realms, we bring them with us.
yeah,
We
yeah,
pack them in.
yeah, yeah. So I went with the So I had this opportunity, but I have this bad habit of moving away from my microphone because uh apparently my previously undiagnosed
You're
ADHD.
2-4 undiagnosed. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Now it's well diagnosed and documented. I tested excellent. I always crush tests though. I've always been great at crushing tests. It's
A plus ADHD. Yeah.
it's the homework I have a problem with, but I tested severely high for ADHD combined type, which is inattentive and hyperactive. Crushed it. Crushed that fucking test. And apparently, like my fidget movements and all that stuff that I've always been aware of, horrible for recording. So I went with a headset, but like I missed the freedom of and the control of the microphone. So like for comedic effect, when you like would lean into the mic
And
I
I
can't
do,
do
yeah.
that with the headset. It's just at a fixed position, so I get a more consistent sound. But I'm missing out on like some of the fun stuff. And then Tristan,
Yeah, yeah.
what headset am I using? Hang on. Yeah,
Ooh.
that would be Audio Technica BPHS ones. So
My mic is an audio. My mic is an audio tech.
yeah, Audio Technica makes some. They're one of the higher quality audios, and this particular headset would be the sort of one of the standard sportscaster ones you would see around. So
That's cool.
depending on
Tristan just
it's gonna change based on whatever whatever branding sponsorship they have going on, but usually it's the Audio Technica headsets, and it's this model at that point I was researching them. This was the model.
right on. Tristan just bought a mic, if I understand correctly. A Yeti, I do believe. This is
Uh,
weird. I gotta wait for it to show up on the stream now. I have it right here. Now
yeah, and now yeah, no, you don't need me to translate chat gang for you. That's fine.
there it is. Uh,
Mm. See, I've got a glass of wine here because I'm a
I figured we'd
sophisticated.
be repping Wisconsin today, so I'm drinking my High Life.
Yeah, the champagne
Two,
and a beer. Yeah.
you got it. It's a good honest beer at a good honest price.
Um, Rantcast soon to Sportscast live stream games. It's funny you say that, Doomer, Doomer.
Humor.
It's funny you say that because I actually started out in shoutcasting. Well, technically, I started out as an alternate in League of Legends and for what is now Team Liquid, formerly Team Curse, or what would have been Curse Academy. So I actually technically started out in Curse Academy as an alternate jungler. Then I organized tournaments and shoutcasted tournaments, and parallel to that, I had been in the FGC community, but I broke my hand, and those milliseconds off responses in the FGC is enough to just
Yeah.
like you just if you're already struggling to get out of pools, because I was never really like a great FGC player. I could go to like an Anime Milwaukee or Geek Con or No Brand Con or ASEN or not so much Yuma. Yuma's really great competition out there in Detroit, but like an ASEN or Anime Central, play winner stays on bouts for the weekend and get my food paid for that weekend by playing Winter Stays On or King of the Hill, you might know him as, where you just quarters up or dollars up rather. Whoever basically stays on the machine till the end of the day, you keep the cash. So I mean, just
Cool.
good way to play. So I was competent enough. I could win. I could win a couple tournaments, like in smaller pools. But then once you get to something that's a little bit bigger, you're trying to make it out of the pool stage to get into the Swisses, into the Swiss matches.
Hmm.
And you know, I'm a basement king. Or rather, I was a basement king. I'm the guy who's there's a great like Onion or hard drive article out there that's like friend too good to play video games with friends, too bad to beat people online or something like that. I mean,
I love that.
that's the classic basement king. Like good enough at FGCs to like beat everybody I know everywhere, and even in like the local scene. So like the various local conventions. Just like the minute you go to that national stage, though, prior to like a really deeper developed online matchmaking system, which we
Hmm.
now these video games like just have excellent matchmaking systems.
Yeah, yeah.
Like going into like former matchmaking systems where it's just like roulette. You have no litmus test. You get your best gauge by actually going to like the big conventions, the big arcade spots. Like that's why SoCal and NorCal have such good gamers, and because they just constantly in competition with each other on neutral ground.
Sure.
Um, so yeah, like then I go there and like maybe I'd make it out of the pools and get knocked into the losers bracket. And that was kind of my trajectory, but it was enough to like feel like I was progressing, like I was getting better, and then I broke my hand, and it was just like I can't do this anymore. Like I'm not no like I went from like maybe had a shot to like forever basement king,
Mhm.
or even below basement king now. So
But there's a question though of what's better, being the big fish in the small pond or small fish in a big pond?
it depends on your ego, your pride, and what
Mm.
your aspirations are. I think that we have that guy in Warhammer, which is the big fish small pond.
Hmm.
Those people in Warhammer tend to kind of suck because they're usually like they're usually the that guy prototype. Uh,
I can't think of any exceptions, so you're probably right.
they tend to be, but then they go to
Mm.
like an Adepticon or like or like a Dragonfall or like a Nova, and they tend to have those rough edges buffed out because you either like learn that we're awesome and chill at the tournament scene,
Hmm.
or like but FGCs you're playing for real money. You're playing for uh you're it's not just playing for pride. You
Sure.
know,
Hmm.
between the two, I like people and I like gatherings, so I'd rather be the small fish in the big pond than the big fish in small
Okay.
pond. Actually,
Gotcha.
like
Right on.
like what do I have to prove in a local community? With like couple dozen people.
Hmm.
Honestly, nothing. Like so. Honestly, I have
So,
nothing to prove anywhere. But go on.
right on. As far as competitive things go, I'm actually incredibly competitive. However, I'm also terrible at any competitive endeavor. So those two don't go together. So
Mm.
the only winning move is to not play because I know I get way too invested in this stuff, and so I have to just say no, I'm not interested in the first place. I know that about myself. Hate losing, lose all the time. So it's a
Oh man,
bad
that's probably why
bad
you're more of an
combination.
RPG player.
Yeah, right. It's hard to lose an RPG,
Cooperative, yeah,
yet
it's
I still
yeah,
find a way. Yeah.
yeah. No, it's cooperative. Like you're, yeah, no. Um, man, like Tristan dropping
Oh,
in with the
I, I, I told him to ask questions, and he's all up in it. How did Aaron decide to start the TMR? I did not, and I don't want I don't want that rumor coming out that I started it because it was going years before I ever got involved. So I suppose I can get into it
Go
if we're
ahead.
willing. All right.
Yeah.
Eric and Davey started the Mortal Realms with a gent from across the pond named Mal. I don't know his deal. In fact, I wonder what he's doing these days. I never thought to ask. But they started like 2015, like day zero of AOS launching, because they thought people were being too negative about AOS. Side thought they were negative because the beginning of AOS wasn't super great, and that's why people were being negative. But Davey and Eric thought they were going to introduce an element of positivity into the world, which is great. It's very commendable. They're very positive guys. And so they started their podcast, the Mortal Realms. It wasn't a story phase at that point; it was an everything phase. They had all sorts of phases in their show.
Hmm.
It was incredibly long. I tried to listen to it, and although there's a lot of good stuff, there's a lot of stuff I was utterly uninterested in. And they were doing that for years, a couple years even. But eventually, they realized the scope of their undertaking was fairly large. They were covering a lot of ground, covering a lot of topics, and they wanted to know if I wanted to get brought on, and Paul as well. At the same time, they asked us if we wanted to join up and share some of the load. I said yes, but I have very little interest in most of the things that you're talking about. I'm only interested in your like little story phases that you would do. And they said sure. And I ran with the story phase side of it, and they just left all the other phases behind essentially. Um, and that's kind of how we got to what we're doing today. And then I was put in charge of story phase stuff, and I was the only one who was doing any phases at that point. So I don't know if that answers Tristan's question,
I think it
but
answers
that's
it
how
pretty
that's
thoroughly.
how it went.
I mean, I think that also answers the follow-up question, which is when did you become the Overlord?
Oh
Like,
yeah,
essentially,
so
you subsumed them all, and basically pulled them into the story phase where you conquered them
yeah,
and won.
and I browbeat them into submission, and now they're again. Don't let them hear me say that. Uh, yeah, and then we've always said, at least ever since I've been involved, is if you're ever interested in doing something for the show or the network, like you just go do it, and if anybody wants to do it with you, they will come join you, or I mean, extend the invitation and they'll join up. If there's any element of whatever the network is that nobody wants to do, we just won't do that thing anymore.
Mhm.
Um, and so that's the direction I went with the story phase. And then, as you can see, anybody who follows the show at all knows that it's sort of a revolving door of network co-hosts who I say we're going to talk about this book this next month. Who wants to join up? And people chime in or chime out, say no, I'm not interested. But in the same way, like that's how we got all our other shows. Is Davey likes reading books, and we talk about Black Library stuff. But he's like, man, I'm really into this Underworlds thing. Does anybody want to do Underworlds or talk about Underworlds?
Mhm.
I did for like 2 episodes, but I guess I have a short attention span. So he went out, found Phil, and the two of them made their show and ran with it. So essentially, it's pick whatever you want to talk about and then go make something out of it. And that's exactly what Phil and Davey did with What the Hex, a great Underworld show. That's what Eric, Paven, and Josh did with Dogs of Warcry. They really wanted to talk about Warcry. Eric was like, "Hey, is anybody interested?" And we were like, "Yeah, lukewarm." I said, "Yeah, I'll do it for 1 or 2 episodes." And he's like, "All right, fine. If you guys aren't interested, I'm gonna find two people who will." And they went off and made their show. And most recently, we're seeing that with the Path to Story. Paul wanted to talk about Path to Glory stuff. Uh, Again, people are interested, but not enough to make another show out of it. So he picks up Will, another local here in Madison, and Spencer as well, who I don't know as well. And now they're making yet another Mortal Realms show. So it's a very unnatural um, following whatever your passion is in the moment, as far as the Mortal Realms
Oh
network is
no, it's.
concerned.
I mean, that's that like really great sort of organic human nature of stories, though, right? Like
Yeah,
Socrates would be proud. He was all about the oral tradition.
which is
Um,
why I do it essentially
yeah,
for my
Socrates,
man
a huge.
Socrates
Yeah,
or
you just you
Socrates.
just you
Yeah.
just exude Socrates. Like
Yeah, yeah. So it's been nice, and it's great because it keeps everybody sort of in the ecosystem of our Mortal Realms network. There's so much I would like not to toot our own. There's a lot of knowledge that has we've developed as each show has sort of been introduced, and we can bounce ideas off of each other. And so, like, nobody's ever starting from scratch. There's so much foundational work laid out, so that we make it pretty easy to start a new show. I'd like to think so, anyways. Maybe it just seems easy, um, but I've liked the way that we've developed it, and I hope you know what I hope we have an infinite number, not infinite, but as many shows as the people in our sort of area and our home base are willing to create. Like it's been a hoot just to watch both the work on the show that I work on and then also see these other shows like pop up.
So do you have to like do you do all the editing, or have you trained other folks in the audio editing aspect? Like, is it you know?
Good
Y-
question. If I could edit all the other shows, I would. And man, would I like to actually, but there's just not enough hours in the day.
Right.
So I would give what advice I can, but I think at this point, like each show is edited by someone who's on the show, essentially, and whether it's like a weird Darwinistic Galapagos Islands, everybody's developed their own system independent of each
Yeah,
other. I mean,
yeah,
I'll
like
give
on
it
the
give it.
Paul's show, like that's the island where the turtles have the really long necks, and
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. And there's like the finches with the short beaks or the long beaks if they're eating seeds or whatever.
yeah,
I was a biology major. That's where that comes from.
based.
But it's because I don't think any two people do edit the exact same way. For long, I guess maybe for the longest time I was doing Audacity, and I think a lot of the other guys do Audacity. But I left and I switched to Reaper, and I don't know that anybody followed me. So
I
it's
tried,
both.
man. I tried. Like I've opened up Reaper and I've tried to just cut out like my dead air points,
Mhm.
and it's because I use for video editing. I use Premiere,
Okay,
Premiere
sure.
Pro, and so it's
Mhm.
the C and the V, and like the hotkeys I know for that are basically the same in Audacity. And I tried to do them in Reaper, and I'm like, I don't even know how to remove this like segment of like dead air, and I'm like, oh, like
There's
that
a
barrier of
big learning curve.
learning
Yeah.
something entirely new, even though I know in the long run my audio quality will improve because their compression's a lot better basically, and
I mean, that might be true, but I think Audacity would probably get you pretty close, though. I don't. It, it's a poor craftsman that blames his tools, and then the opposite would be it'd be a poor craftsman that like gives all credit to their tools either. Like I think it's as good as you want to, how much time you want to put into it, and you know
well, it's
how good you want to make it.
my art teacher Mr. Ganrud had he said it was the three T's. It's time, tools, and technique.
Sure.
And so you need like a good artist. It's all three of those are going to be in some form of harmony. You're going to put the time in, have know the right tools to use is usually what he was talking about,
Okay.
um, and then your technique, which is just the defining and refining your technique, and so those three things are how you like. Those three things are the things that you're always working on to achieve the best art.
Okay.
So
Oh, nope, swallowed that one. So I don't even know that I would recommend Reaper. Like Audacity got me so far, and honestly, if we were still recording in person and only had one audio track for like the 3 to 4 people, I'd probably still be using Audacity. It's just I'm saying it weird, Audacity. Um, it's the fact that now that we record on Zencaster remotely, that kicks me 3 different audio files. It just works in my head. It works better in Reaper, and so that's why I use it again.
mhm.
I'm sure there's different strokes for different folks. Whatever you've learned, whatever you're most comfortable with, is probably the best tool in the moment because a lot of inertia goes into like even just starting your edit, right? And if you can remove as many roadblocks as possible, which is to say, removing a learning curve, it probably behooves you to just use the thing that you're familiar with,
Yeah.
and spend your time honing whatever your craft is in like you said your 3 T's but in whatever tool you happen to be using in the moment. So I
Yeah.
mean I still have Audacity installed like I haven't given up on it. It's just
I
Reaper's suiting me right now.
I still have Reaper installed. I haven't given up on it. One of these days, I'm gonna.
Oh, vice
It's like
versa. Yeah.
it's like my airbrush, which has now become a shelf for my riffs books, as you can see.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, so that's going good. The same barrier to entry with my airbrush, which is like I have to spend some time reading how to physically connect the hoses and get the airflow going correctly.
Sure.
And that barrier right there of like I could spend an hour reading and setting stuff up, or I could like put together models for an hour, and
Hmm.
the the quickest road to the dopamine hit is usually the one I go for. You
Yeah,
know.
the dopamine highway. Let's get on it as
Yeah.
quickly as possible. Where's the on ramp,
Yeah.
please? Yeah. So that I'm thinking about getting a not a not a Peloton, but a stationary bike, just whatever cheapest one I can find, so I can hang my clothes on it. Is what I'm looking forward to doing.
Nice. Nice. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
clothes rack.
Um.
What
Why?
else is Tristan asking? He's got a lot of ones.
Well, he
A lot of
asked
ones
why
here.
were you describing the party at the All Points, which I think is a similar origin story.
Ooh, possibly.
Yeah.
Oh, because he got brought on. He was an OG, right? If I remember
No,
correct. He's
no,
mad
but now
because I
he's
don't listen to
totally
him.
taken over. Yeah. Well, it's weird.
Same
Do you
deal.
find
Yeah.
when making content, you run out of time to listen to others' content? Like, have you run into
Absolutely.
that? Okay.
100%. It's so I haven't thought this story out well enough, but you could say that
I love
the
it.
reason I
Shoot,
do the
shoot from the
story
hip.
phase,
Yeah.
the reason I do the story phase is because there wasn't the story phase, and it's one of those you make the show you want to listen to, and there was this I don't want to say hole, but like this space I wanted to be filled. It wasn't being filled in the way I wanted it to be filled, so you want something done, you got to do it yourself sort of element. So there's that element of it, or that component of it. Furthermore, it's not because I'm making content that I don't listen to other content. It's because I don't commute anymore is the problem, and I can't
Mm.
listen to words and work. I can't. My brain
Especially
doesn't work that
editing and
way.
stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, that too. So like, I don't even take my kids to school anymore, or rather, I walk my kids to school, so I don't have had headphones in anymore. So I think it's just I don't have an opportunity to listen to content. If I would, Tristan, I'm looking you in the eye right now. I'd listen to Party at the All Points. I totally would. It's just that I don't listen to anything right now.
Yeah.
Um,
Aaron hates Garage Hammer confirmed.
hates garage. I don't actually. I used to listen to a lot of Garage Hammer in eighth edition days. I like YTech, and I don't know who his co-host is anymore. It's
I'm
just
not.
that when he would lose the co-hosts I was familiar with and I was used to. I didn't want to get invested in like getting
I
attached to any new ones, and so I'm like, well, I'll just
I actually
call
liked
it.
when Alex G was on. Alex G has like a very palatable amount of salt that I find
Sure.
like endearing as hell. Like I just and Whitex energy is just it's very high. And when you have that like when you have that like that Dave energy like offset uh with like the sort of like low key Alex Salt, that was what it was like there was just like an intrinsic humor there
Sure,
for
sure,
me.
sure.
And
I
I
missed the Chris's. Like I was the I can't remember the first Chris's last name,
I'm
but then also Chris Yu. Those were,
I'm
you know, you can
I'm gonna be
people
honest.
define themselves based
Yeah, go
off
ahead.
their who Doctor who that they
Yeah,
started with or
yeah,
whatever. I
yeah,
don't know.
yeah.
I never watched it,
No,
but
no, no. It's true. It's which doc like which doctor was your like the Doctor Who when you started liking it. I think the same thing happens with Star Trek. I
oh
think the
sure,
same thing
okay.
happens with Zelda games actually.
Oh yeah,
The
big
best
Ocarina of Time guy. Yeah.
Link to the Past.
Yeah. Okay. There you go.
Yeah. No, it's not necessarily the started with. It's the formative years.
Yeah. Sure.
It like started with would be like me watching VHSs of like the original Doctor Who with the scarf and crap, like obviously right after the audio era with my
Hmm.
with my uncle John as like a kid. It was when they rebooted it and it was like the Angry Doctor, still my
Okay.
favorite. Like I understand David Tennant was great, but like and he really is, but I love David Tennant as a villain so much more.
Oh
Like
sure.
when he was playing the Purple Man or like anytime he's
Jessica.
Jessica, like it's delicious.
He's so scary.
I just with and he's got like just the right like the like those devilish features, like very angular, like
Yeah.
just wonderful, wonderful. Uh,
Was he loose? Was he the devil in that Terry Pratchett game
yeah,
show
he's
that just
great
came
in
out? I
that.
didn't
He's
watch
great
it,
in that.
but yeah.
He's the deep the demon side of it, and
Oh yeah. Oh,
uh,
Good Omens. That's what it's called.
yeah, no, it's excellent, and
Mhm.
got renewed for another season. So awesome.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it was really good. I
I
that I
read the
watched
book. I've never watched it. Yeah.
read the book and watched the whole thing in one sitting on Amazon the first season. I couldn't stop watching it. Like I
Right
was
on. That's cool.
it was perfect. It was just
Hmm.
perfect. Exactly what I needed. Like there's the quote in Big Lebowski, sometime, there's a man and he's the right time or he's the right man for his time and
Right
place.
time. Yeah.
You know, like it's not
That's
about
good.
being like the best man. He's just the best man for his time and place, right?
Yeah, the right one.
Yeah, he's the right one. That was Good Omens. You know, it was just the right thing to binge for its time and place. It was like one of those winter, you know, layoff nights where like I had nothing to do in the morning, and I'm just like watched it. The sun started coming up, and I'm like, I'm just gonna watch one more. And
There,
next,
just one.
yeah,
Classic one more.
yeah,
Classic one more.
yeah,
Famous last words.
yeah, yeah. Uh, Alex is less salty off the show. I think Alex is he's got like a certain persona that people mistake his deadpan as you know, as like salt or whatever, and but yeah,
Yeah, Alex is great.
he's
I mean,
actually, yeah, he's actually a great dude. Like he really is. We're I got to be honest though, the only episodes of Garage Hammer I've listened to like in full were the ones I was on. My
oh
favorite
yeah.
ones, like by far my favorite ones. Um, you
When was
know,
that? Well, I haven't listened in probably years at this point. So
it was probably years at this point. It was an Ossiarch Bone Reapers came out. He had me on to do
okay.
the lore side of Ossiarch Bone Reapers, and then he had me on for Soulblight Gravelords to do the lore side of Soulblight Gravelords. And keeping in mind, there were 2.5 content creators at the time that actually said that book was good, and time has proven all 2.5 of us correct. Everyone else be mad, get at me. No, so I went on
Got
there and
him.
I'm just doing propaganda for Soulblight Gravelords.
Sure, sure.
Yes.
Someone's got to. It's a dirty job, but someone's got to do it,
Right. Well,
and it's you.
I think there's a joy in leaning into your passions and your homerism, which is why I think the story phase is so good, because it's so clear that like there's still that passion there for like kind of everything, which is might be a little bit of why like COVID stagnation happened for so many content creators. It was hard to be
Yeah, right.
it was hard to be passionate about the things with the, you know, the state of the world it was, and so
True, and I mean, it helps to when your passion is a very distinctly an escapist sort of pursuit, right? Like when the world is pretty awful, it's helpful to have the thing that you're into be your doorway out of like the awfulness of the world, as opposed to I can't think of a counterpoint to that, I suppose, but I don't. Instead of my passion being clubbing, I suppose, right? So like
yeah,
you
yeah,
can't
yeah. If you
really pause that. Um, God, where would I even go for a club? I couldn't even tell you where the nearest club was. Um, so
there's a
that does help.
really great farmers market where you live, like one of the best I've ever been to, and I've been like kind of
Yeah,
all over the you know, continental U.S. So
yeah. I mean, it's one of the. Well, I think it's one of the biggest ones in the Midwest. And being a well, then a late 20s and into my 30s, I mean, a young adult with small like family, I am very much a cliche in that we spend a lot of time in that farmers market.
yeah.
Um, I can admit it. I'm not too proud to admit. Uh,
uh,
it's
uh,
great cheese bread.
Tomb Dad coming with straight fire here. He's
Do
like
you ever feel like your show would be as successful as it is without getting books early? The early books is a relatively recent development.
based.
And
I
secondly,
should
is
say
it
wrecked.
successful? How do you define successful? Um,
There was that one website that listed y'all as like the #1 podcast.
I think that's just random, or it's like a time thing. Like it was one of the first Age of Sigmar podcasts for sure, but I don't know if I mean, if you look at the numbers, I don't think we're necessarily at
It
top.
has to do with
You want
like
to talk,
it had to do with like consistency of release and stuff like that, and like relative audience to release time or something.
but we took a huge like 6 month break. The show would be as successful as without game. I do not to defend it. I don't have to defend myself to you, Tristan.
No,
But
no, 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 no.
furthermore, like we don't do day one release for anything, right? It's weeks after the book has even hit the shelves before we even get around to making a show. I'm more of a stickler for. This is weird for me to say this now because I literally missed this month, but I'm more of a stickler for like my monthly release schedule than I am for like being timely with our releases. So I don't know that the early aspect has much of an effect on what we're doing. Um, I mean, even like Garage Hammer shows, I think are probably longer than our shows, and he still gets to it before we ever get to it, which is a feature or a bug of like often I'm wrangling too many people to try and put together a show. Um,
Not trying to make it spicy. No, I think I think there is a perception in the world, like shill gets thrown around way more than I'm comfortable with as the
mm,
anti-capitalist anarchist dude I am. I see shill get thrown around an awful lot. That I like again. So like when I'm the one who's like, whoa, hang on there, like, you know, flag on the play type thing at people calling people shills. I think that's a pretty good like I'm like a canary in the coal mines.
Sure. Yeah,
If
yeah,
I've
yeah.
got a problem with it, it's like we dropped a shill like the shill bomb a lot in this community. I don't know, like everyone. I think it's a couple very specific actors out there that people have a problem with, and then like people get roped into that residual heat. You don't need to defend yourself, man. I think your podcast is one of the most on the level out there, and you guys do a great
I,
job with it. If I
I don't think
cared
I was
more,
really
if
defending
only I
myself. I
cared
don't
more about
apparently,
lore, I would listen to it more.
but it's a certain sort of person who has any interest in the things that we have to talk about. And like I think we're positive enough that I wouldn't be surprised if the passing listener might think shill compared to so like when thinking about the way we present the things that we're talking about. But another way to look at it is we wouldn't do the show at all if we weren't like pretty heavily invested in the things that we were talking about. And if we didn't like the subject matter, we wouldn't talk about it. And so by that very nature, the things the tone we're gonna have is gonna be positive because we're only talking about things that we
I,
were gonna be
I think this
positive about in the first
I
place.
think
So
this goes back to the internet thing. We were like talking a little bit out off air. Maybe it made it into the cold open. I don't know. I'll talk to my editors and post.
yeah, sure.
I just changed Buck's hats, and now the editor's there.
Like the guy in Encanto with the bucket.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We were talking about the internet and just how, or I guess maybe I was talking about the internet a little bit more. About how like we really are we haven't downloaded our consciousnesses into the robots like we thought we would, but we're very much, a little visual metaphor for those of you who aren't listening back on like Podbean or whatever. But the microchip is in my hand; it's not in my head. But a lot of the affect, the dopamine, the mentality, the mercy of the algorithms and all those things, and we so much of our digital experience is overlapping with our real experiences. Getting a job these days, you pretty much can't do it without going online. There's so many
Mhm.
aspects of life that have been sort of offloaded onto the internet, and that's not good or bad. That's just a statement of the trend. Um, but I think that there's that sort of forced engagement aspect of like the nature of content creation.
Mhm.
First off, I hate content creation as a like thing, but for lack of until somebody comes up with like a better thing to say what it is we do,
Yeah.
I have to keep calling it content. We're
Content.
making content, right? But the nature of it is this like sort of forced engagement, like sort of like negativity engine. Like it's endemic to the internet. The negative thing gets clicked on more than or rather the negativity forces engagement more than the positivity. And I think that there's a sort of said when Age of, when the Mortal Realm started, the sort of like MO was like, let's just be happy, like let's just make a show where we actually like this thing, you
Yeah.
know, and that AOS has that in its DNA, I think, a little bit more than other games
I think
because
so.
there was a sort of like exodus of people who couldn't adapt,
Hmm.
and when that happened and the game wasn't sufficient, the community had to make it good.
Yeah. Agreed.
And so that community sort of staking ownership over the game, having those original sort of like comp, like I know they're called comp, but I don't think of them in terms of like comp the way we would think of it now and saying like you can't play with your toys. It was enabling you to play with your toys by having rules that everyone could like look
Yeah.
at and be like, okay, this is how we interface. Um, and so like you had this sort of like communal ownership of the thing and this positivity that just kind of became part of the AOS DNA, and that's kind of carried forward. I think as content holes fill in around it, like you guys started out probably one of the only lore podcasts out there, if not the
Give
only
or
one
take.
in the original time. As more lore shows have cropped up and stuff like that, there's sort of, I think some of that expectation for how the internet
Hmm.
operates is there. That negativity, like yeah, you're gonna go on and read the thing, but if you look at media analysis of like the cinema sins, here's a movie, and then they're not talking about how much they love any movie
Sure.
ever. It's just nitpicking surface level details and shitting on it, like with, and that's so easy to do, and because it's so easy to do, and because it's successful, it's how it's like, again, it's like expectant. It's kind of how we're wired.
Yeah.
And when something doesn't do that, there's almost like this recoil from it a little bit. I think you guys are kind of above that because you're like accredited as AOS podcasts. You know, you have the tenure to kind of prove yourself above it. But if somebody comes along now with a show and they don't have, you know, that if they don't play into that like sort of outrage merchant thing, like everyone's like, ah, do you really like AOS that much? Or are you just a shill? Like it's
Yeah, right. Then if you don't have like the edge or the bite to it or something like that, they just assume, yeah, maybe you have an ulterior motive or
But
what
I
what
can't
have you.
fathom spending like the time I spend on my podcast. And I see I cheat. My
You
technique,
wouldn't.
I don't technically talk about Warhammer. Like that's my
Warhammer
secret.
adjacent. Yeah,
Warhammer
right. You say
adjacent.
it. You say it at the top. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
it's
yeah.
clear.
Warhammer. I talk about like the culture around it, the adjacencies. I try to get a little life lessons in there. You
In
know.
some way, that's so much more interesting than the Warhammer
Well,
itself.
I like to think I talk about the community. I'm a community focused podcast.
Okay, yeah.
There's not really a way. You know, I'm focused on the community. You know, that's always been the agenda from day one, and that community has interests beyond Warhammer. Where are the
Hmm.
intersections between what community, you know, likes and so on. That's what it's about for me.
Yeah.
But like again, I cheat. I can't imagine spending just the time I spend with my podcast being mad at a thing. Don't get me wrong, like that was my games journalist career is just like
Yeah.
becoming cynical and hating and learning to hate video games, and I still haven't fully recovered from doing that for 10 years, you know,
Still
after.
inside you somewhere.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, it's just dead. Just dead. You know, I like I had to be an apologist on behalf of myself because I pre-ordered Elden Ring, and I refuse, like, on any given day I will tell you never pre-order anything. Pre-orders are
Yeah.
bullshit, and like don't pay for something that doesn't exist yet.
Sure.
Don't do that. Why would you shill for a company?
I do it all the time.
I know you are a shill. See, shill confirmed. Never mind. We can end the episode. No,
Absolutely.
no. It's like you know, and then I'm like, well, I bought Elden Ring, and so like I felt like that inner cynic that's just doesn't love video games anymore is like, you son of a bitch.
Hypocrisy signs
Yeah,
just flashing
yeah,
above
just like
there. Yeah.
yeah, like we can never trust anything Mephisto says about video games ever again. Now everybody, like, it's over. He pre-ordered one
Which
video
is
game.
which is how the internet works. You do. Okay, I know how this sounds, but sometimes it feels like you do. Well, no, I don't want to get into a cancel culture conversation, but still, I trust you no matter what, ride or die.
Thank you,
Um,
thank you.
you're absolutely welcome. Um,
What?
Kristen, or Tristan, not Kristen. Tristan, you're asking, would you force your co-podders to get better audio gear if it wasn't up to snuff? I don't force them, but I peer pressure them so hard that they go and upgrade their gear to do so. So we get like there was a time where we'd get a lot. I'm not going to name names, but we'd get a lot of like crashes or like mics wouldn't work and blah blah blah, and it I don't want to. It was affecting not the quality of the podcast because eventually we'd get around it, but like getting up and moving, it was another activation energy to sort of put the show out. And I don't know, it maybe I wear my heart on my sleeve too much, or it I let it seem like it was getting to me, and then people out of sympathy, people started picking up their technical, or they were picking up their technical slack, and they started to meet me halfway. So that's how I answer that question. Um, I wonder, are you asking because you're experiencing, Tristan, are you experiencing people not holding their own on the audio
Oh, I
quality?
think he is
Are you looking for
100.
advice?
I think he is 100% trying to up the party at the all points game by like osmosing knowledge from one of the best in the
I wonder if
business.
that's what he's getting at. It was so much easier when so much easier when we did it in person because it was just all my stuff. We'd set up like a table, like my room goes this way a little bit, so you'd set up a little table. We'd all sit around each other. We could look at each other. We make funny faces. Man, there's no reason. I guess no reason why we can't go back to it. I suppose we're all vaccinated. There's only the three or four of us. It wouldn't be the end of the world. You know what? Maybe I pick it back up. My soundboard's getting dusty over there. We could fire it up again. Um, I don't know that. I think we're doing a pretty good job on Zencaster, sort of keeping the vibe to a comparable level. But I bet there's a little, like an inch or
There's
two
a
that we can get closer to that
there's a
dynamic that
little
we used to
lost in
have.
translation. I used to do my first podcasts. we're with a group out of Milwaukee called the Technophiles Podcast
Mm,
Network, TPN.
fun. Hmm.
And they had a couple different shows. They had like the Branching Dialogues was the name of the video game show I was on. They had like their actual Technophile News, which was just like tech trends
Hmm.
um that was in person. And that was like my with the fucking snowballs, the Eddies. Um and uh and that was my first experience. And like there is something kind of like social cues in terms of your turn to speak is a lot smoother in reality than on the internet.
True. Yeah.
It's that slight delay between Discord, the like you can see somebody kind of lean forward, you're a little bit more aware of it. Like right now I'm distracted by looking at chat. Just enough of a twinkle of my dog over here to where my eyes keep darting over there. But in
Mm.
person you have that human that you're imperceptibly picking up on just the same level. When will you add an audio soundboard? Like yeah, like like when you dog, and then like oinks and shit. Like yeah, like you listen to the
One
Mortal
day,
Realms. Yeah,
what I want
lightning
to do
crashes,
something. Yeah.
sad
Well,
trombone.
we used to, we're better now, but we would swear on the show, and we're trying to make it a point to not swear on the show. And so it was fun because it's not fun, but in editing, I'd put a thunderbolt over any swears. But it'd be so much cooler if I could, press the button for a thunderbolt.
Yeah.
But now everybody's in the habit of keeping minding their p's and q's and not swearing. Also, apparently Tristan's not or he's not. He's the one who's holding everybody else back. Maybe that's why he's asking.
Yeah. No, I mean, if the advice is actually Tristan, just buy a better microphone, just get better
I
equipment.
don't. This one isn't. I don't know. It wasn't terribly expensive. I don't. How do you define expensive? I'm not going to make that judgment call for anybody else.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I wouldn't tell anyone to buy the headset I bought at the amount I bought it at, just as like if
Mhm.
they were just starting out a podcast, I'd be like, oh yeah, invest in this. I've done this for how long now? I do want to get the freaking stand XLR now. Just I feel like it would be more freeing to not always be
Yeah.
wearing these. Always be wearing the cans. Um,
There's something fun to like whenever you need to yell something, you can just kick your head back
Lean
to
back
to
and
the mic
shout it.
and
Yeah,
shout.
like
Yeah.
yeah, no, like there's an affect of like playing with the mic that I think is really fun that I've lost since I moved back to the headset.
Mhm.
Um, uh, Bud setup is nice. Bud seems to have audio experience, but that makes sense because he did sports casting. So of
Oh,
course,
did he?
of course he's had to like, even if it wasn't in his job description, he has had to troubleshoot those audio setups and stuff. I guarantee it because that's just part of the game when you're in those small teams like that. Um, Domir, just reset real quick on the CinemaSins. I use CinemaSins as shorthand. If I say something more abstract, you don't quite know the point I'm trying to make. That's the point of like talking in metaphor is like I paint a picture and you understand that the exact type of content I'm talking about, whether it comes from a place of earnestness or that's the joke, and you go listen to their podcast and they do something different. CinemaSins is an easy go-to where I can paint a picture for you metaphorically speaking and not have to fully explain what I mean. Uh, so
I wonder. So Cinnamon Sins is often the butt of not the butt of
they're
a
the
joke,
yeah
but
they're
like
the butt or the
they're used.
explainer. Yeah.
Yeah, they're often used as to make the point that you were making before. And I think they or he, I don't even know. I think they know that, and so I wonder if they're trying to do a better job of not like exuding that. I might be grasping at straws here. Maybe this isn't true, but I wonder if they want to try a little harder to not always be that, because they do a show where there's the CinemaSins for CinemaSins, right? So like they're even cognizant of like the vibe that they're
Oh, they
putting out. They're
know.
trying to
They
be,
know. But
yeah.
but like does when it I'm gonna go with the Kurt Vonnegut here. We are who we pretend to be. Uh,
Ooh, I like that.
you know, at a certain point, even if you're it's the joke is that you're doing the crappy thing, but then some person who doesn't know it's a joke takes your like lazy takes onto their Twitter rants, and then like they start just spreading this vitriol about it, and then that's where that forced negativity come in. I'm not saying be positive about crap. I am not that. I am a cynic by nature who desperately fights his inner cynic constantly by trying to be more optimistic. And I don't know that I always succeed, and I often fail. Um, but yeah, you never go full Vonnegut. Um, But there's a certain degree of what you're putting out there. Doesn't matter if the Instagram star is making the the tropey videos, the 40 the top 40 lists for every inane detail of reality. And the 40 lists aren't meant to be taken seriously, but now people are out there trying to do his 40 hacks for this, that, and the other thing.
Hmm.
There's a like I said, it's the internet is I think we're actually already in the transhumanist phase of the internet. Is just
Very well
this
could be.
I think we are. I mean,
Would
keep
we
in mind,
know? Like, is that something you can know when you're in the middle of it?
that's what I figured out. Like I'm like, huh, I think we're there. This was a eureka moment for me. Transhumanism doesn't just refer to like sweet robots. By the way, transhumanism goes back to the Industrial Revolution, where
But it could, though.
it could, though, right? I mean, that goes back to the idea of like sort of transhumanism goes back to like automation itself.
Hmm.
These lines were supposed to improve humanity's life, and technology has always preceded advancement and leisure and a lot of things. Agriculture, fire, like all these things have sort of changed. Humanity's relationship with itself and the world around it. Like it's a constant thing, and there's this disconnect that we think because the internet is digital, it's zeros and ones, it is this thing. And I'm gesturing towards my screen right now for those of you. It exists over here, and I can just as easily roll my chair over there and not be on the internet right now, right? And that means the internet isn't real,
Hmm.
you know. And yet, get a job without the internet, you know.
Good luck. Yeah.
You know,
Uh, when I see people get mad, we run our Discord channel, you run your Discord channel, and that people get so animated, they get so mad at whoever we're getting mad at in any given day, and how much energy is spent to be negative reaction towards something that someone said or something like that. Uh, in direct contrast to what you just said, I always have to hold myself back from telling the people who are getting mad that person means nothing to you. They are zeros and ones. They don't count. They are irrelevant to your life. But that's not exactly true, right? To your point, that the reactions that you feel like does it
yeah, the
affects you.
emotions are
It triggers.
real. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good way to put it, right?
Yeah,
And so, still, it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to lash out at folks
right.
online
No,
per
I think
se.
that
But
that's just being a decent person, not being a
yeah,
douchebag to everybody just because of whatever. And if
mm,
there's any way you can temper your responses, by all means,
sure.
like
So
it.
maybe that's how I trick myself to not lash out. Is I have to tell myself that that person is zeros and ones. I'm never going to see this person in my life. They have no effect on me whatsoever. Even though, I mean, like you said, emotions are real, and that may not be inherently true. It's how I get through the day, anyways.
Well,
So.
that's the thing I've had to work on. Like I've been trying to rewire my brain for years now, but the thing I've had to work on the most recently, especially once getting this podcast, like I learned really early on, like when I started like just shit, like I would just shit on whatever I didn't like, and
Mhm.
and then I had people who would like watch my show and like really liked my show, and then they'd hear me make fun of their absolute favorite thing in the world. Like I would just the way that only I, very specifically, the most dangerous man can, with all my affects and my fun turns of phrase, my crassness, my hard edge, that comes from some real lived experiences, man. Like,
Sure.
and
But a gooey center, though, huh?
yeah, no, I've had to reconnect to that. Like, I've had to find the kindness inside me, um, and and just like realize like, and then just like seeing kind of in real time somebody like just feel betrayed because I made fun of their favorite thing, and
Hmm.
and being like, I don't want to do that to people anymore, you know,
Sure.
and like, yeah, I'm not gonna like not tell you what I think. I'm very good at telling people what I think, way too much, in fact. But to be cognizant of the fact that a person's emotional response to the stimulus
Hmm.
is almost unintentional. Like
Sure.
we can't really control. The emotion is the thing you feel, and that happens, and that's on that cursory sort of base first response level. Stimulus
Hmm.
happens, you feel some kind of way. And people can't help that. Whatever that is, if it's disgust, it's anger, if it's happiness,
Sure.
it's that second tier thought, and then the actions that go out, that sort of go out from that emotional state, that I think we got to focus a little bit more on.
Yeah,
This
too true.
this means giving people like some distance to have the emotion, and then if it's like Gargants come out and your friend is disappointed that Mega Gargants come out and he's like, man, this is not the army I thought it should be, man, I'm like really upset. And then me, the asshole, looking at the army going, oh no, this army's gonna be great, it's gonna be really competitive, and him go, and he's like, and me not having this, like, I have no idea what, I'm just not engaging him emotionally. I have no idea what the fuck he's talking about, because I look at it and I go, look at these numbers, look at the capturing, it can kick objectives, like, one addition. You can fucking check the tapes on this one, by the way. You're going back to and being like, oh no, and then just like utterly dismissing my friend's emotions because what they wanted wasn't what they got, and just giving that distance to people. This, I don't know. It's just, it's complicated because like I'm a very I think I read him as a more emotional individual. Like I certainly wear myself on my sleeve.
Sure, yeah.
When
Definitely not the
Nagash,
opposite. I mean, there's that. So.
what's that?
I said you're definitely not the opposite, right?
No,
Like,
that's
you're
right.
not on the other end of the spectrum, so.
Yeah. No, I'm not reserved and quiet, and you never know what I'm feeling. But yeah, you got to have that, like, the every grave you dance on, someone else's mourning over. Yeah, a little bit of
Oh
that, I
no,
suppose.
who's
Yeah.
dancing on graves? This is kind of a
No,
tangent,
go
but
ahead.
it's something I've been thinking about recently, and it actually relates to something we were talking about earlier. So I'm going to
Yeah,
combine
no,
some
boom,
two
let's
thoughts
go. Yeah,
here
no,
in terms of
this is
being
professional.
cognizant of the things that you say and how it affects other people. And back to the sort of shill comment, we don't love everything that we review or everything that we talk about, and there have been times where we've discussed novels on the show that we haven't necessarily even not even just been glowing about, maybe had some reservations or brought up some issues. And there was a while there where I knew for sure that nobody or no authors for any of the books that we were talking, they had no idea who we were. And it didn't, essentially, it didn't matter what we said about any of these books because it went into our small little circle of followers, and that was the end of it. But now we're reaching the point where, for better or worse, some of the authors are actually like listening to the reviews of the things that we do. And I'm not prepared for that. Like, I'm not ready for like looking an author in the eye and telling him him or her about what I think of their story. And so it is starting to affect how I approach, and maybe the other guys too, like approach reviewing or discussing what I think about something, is because of the internet. I'm face to face with whoever wrote this thing sometimes, and I don't know if I'm cool with telling someone to their face what I think about their stories. And so there's one recent, I won't say specifically, but there's one book that we weren't super great about, and I knew he listened to the episode. I wish I could take it back. I wish I could have rephrased it in such a way that, like, it was, whether it was more delicate or I could maybe explain the reasons why I didn't like this or that.
Well,
But it still haunts me, and I don't want it to affect how we do shows going forward. I want to be honest.
you want to be honest, yeah, absolutely.
I
You
want to
don't,
be.
because you don't
I
want to
don't want
miss.
to take anyone off though.
Right. Yeah. I mean, well, you've got it's a complicated relationship because
Yeah.
you have real humans making art.
Yeah.
You're
And
a
I
writer
want
too,
them to
right?
keep making that
You're
art.
right. You're a writer, right? You submitted to the Black
I don't, no,
Library.
no, definitely not. No, no.
No, I
I'm
thought.
flattered you think so, but no, absolutely not.
No, no. Okay, I thought you were a writer too.
No.
Well, from the
I,
content.
I'm a content consumer.
Okay.
It's a one way thing
Yeah,
with
it
this
just comes.
guy.
Yeah, all in,
Comes in.
nothing out. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Okay. So then I'll engage on a different axiom. We'll come at a different angle with your
Yeah, by all
podcast.
means.
You're a real living, breathing human that creates a podcast episode.
That's true. Yeah.
You you don't have to brave the wild west of YouTube comments like I do, but
No, God forbid.
but but you hear feedback.
Do I, or do I ignore it? Or we don't get a lot of feedback, for better or worse. So
Can
there
you?
will be a point where I have to
Yeah.
stare down, negative reactions to the things that we do. I guess I'd like to think that I would appreciate honesty from those people, and thus I would, uh, not expect the same for the people that
Yeah, a little bit of the
who
golden
are
rule,
creating the
right?
content that
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
dealing
Treat
with as
people the way you
well.
want to be treated. Little
Yeah, well, exactly, right. Or I, not that I expect it out of them, or I hope that we can sort of rise to the same level. But maybe I'm just so non-confrontational that I was just maybe not mentally prepared for the inevitability of like my words reaching somebody whose opinion I don't want to like, or whose feelings I don't want to hurt. It's not that I don't want to take them off. Is I want to encourage them. Like, if you're out there writing AOS books or what have you, even if I don't like your last one, I want you to make the next one or the one after that or
Yeah.
the one after that. And I hope that nobody gets discouraged because of some shitty thing that I've ever
Well,
said about their
well,
stories.
there's like, I'm not a big Kevin Smith fan. Anyone will know that. So like Kevin Smith is gonna watch this and go, "Oh, you don't like my shit?" Yeah, I know Kevin Smith is gonna hear me.
I mean,
Uh,
Smith, you got more important things to be doing.
no,
Get out of
he
your
no
feelings.
way he listens to fucking
No, I know.
AOS RantCast. Maybe if he mistakes this for Lewis Black's RantCast, and
Mm.
accidentally clicks on it. But I had it
Is it
first,
Louis
Lewis. I
Black's
had it
name of his
first.
show?
Huh?
Oh, is
Yeah.
that true? Is that the name of a show? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Bastard. I had it first.
Yes. Oh, bad joke.
No, and he can buy me out if he would so like. No, it's uh the um no, like I don't really like the Kevin Smith stuff, but like there's that part early on in it was a Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back where they're talking about like how everyone has the internet now and it's turned everyone into a critic.
Sure.
And as so when you go to school for English Lit, which is what I went for, you did biology,
Oh,
I did
nice.
English Lit.
Mhm.
You're taught like you're taught literary analysis, which is literally the backbone for all media analysis. It's all they're
Same
all
thing.
using the same crap that has been taught for centuries in English literature.
Mhm.
That's your structuralism, post-structuralism, death of the author, intentionalism, like close reading, which is the main one. There's something called new criticism or neo-criticism. That's the one that predominantly is used.
That's the
Um,
thing where English teachers make up themes for stories that no author ever intended, but then they test their students on what they think the book is about, and then you have to like you're not reading the author, but you're reading the teacher's interpretation of the author. And I hate that.
so that's like a degree remove. So that's going to be like closer to structuralism.
Yeah,
That
it's more
like
for a
essentially
goof.
that like that sort of like the tenets of a society at the time are what inform the book and what the author's intentions are, and the stuff you read into the book itself isn't as important as the stuff around the is. So
I didn't expect to have a real answer, so kudos to you, man. Good
structuralism is
job.
poop. It's the worst one. No. we no all of the lenses of analysis are useful for what they're useful for. Okay,
Mhm.
it's kind of like quantum physics versus like Newtonian physics. Quantum physics is really good at small stuff, but when you try to use quantum physics for big stuff, it like the math breaks down, and vice versa
Sure.
with Newtonian physics.
Mhm.
Um, we have some really highbrow jokes here on this show. I'm just saying. Um,
I was
um,
gonna say everybody knows that. You're just
yeah,
you're just
everyone
preaching to
knows
the
this stuff.
choir. Yeah.
Everyone knows this stuff. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So the lenses of analysis in literary analysis that have now kind of blown out into media analysis is it's literary, blah blah blah. I'm here to tell you that most people who critique stuff on the internet don't know any of this shit.
Sure.
They close
Me included. Yeah.
they most closely resemble neo or new criticism, which is that's where like we get our close readings is one of like the sort of the new developments, learning how to do close reading and stuff like that. So that's
Mhm.
like kind of the primary one. But the thing is like people have at some point along the way, and I blame the internet, conflated cynicism for criticism. You
Those
know,
words sound so similar. They're so close.
your brain is just gonna if you're not paying attention, your brain is automatically gonna log them as synonyms. You know,
Mhm.
like you're just
Criticism.
they're just boom, they go in there and you're like cynicism that and cynicism just means be negative,
Sure.
right? Um, and so what people seem to think, especially in the early phases of the internet, the white guy yells at thing era of or white guy gets mad at movie or white guy gets mad at like the internet skeptics, white guy gets mad at religion, white guy gets mad at video game. Like that was a whole. I love AVGN as much as the next
Sure.
person, or at least
Mhm.
did for a time. Like
Okay.
when he was still the angry video game nerd, it was the funniest thing in the world to me. Ha ha. So I get it. I got the appeal. But because that was how we absorbed criticism, media criticism, it's also how we project our criticism.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and so learning how to like just be negative about something, super easy. Really easy to like nitpick out every flaw in anything you see. It's hard to give meaningful criticism. It's
Yeah.
difficult. One of the there's also like another bad technique you're taught is to give a compliment sandwich. Say a bad thing, say a good thing, say a bad thing. That's also not media analysis. And that's what
Very artificial or contrived.
well, and
Yeah.
that's what people are taught to do when someone says CNC my my work in progress, give me some
Mhm.
criticism. Basically, they're inviting criticism. One of the main things I see people do is the fucking compliment sandwich that they learned in like fucking grade school, and I'm just like, that's that's not constructive criticism. That's not you have to, in order to do constructive criticism, you have to be able to deconstruct something, and then give them the tool, like give them something to build from or build
Yeah,
back with, and we
very
never learn
actionable
that
stuff.
first part, and it's I mean, this even ties into like sort of the negativity of the negativity bias of the internet. And this is a weird show, everybody. I'm sorry. I apologize for this.
I love
Um,
it.
um, but no, like the sort of like substituting negativity for criticism, and I've been fatigued with it for a long time, and I don't even do criticism anymore. I'm just like, that's not criticism, and then I just like push my glasses that I suddenly have up and like walk away.
That's honestly one of the only. I mean, I can get contacts, but I don't for a lot of the affectations that you can do
Oh,
with
glasses! Yeah, no,
glasses.
I
Yeah.
totally would never wear contacts. One, I'm not touching my eyeball,
Oh God, no.
and
That's actually the number one reason. Yeah.
and if I'm going to wear if I'm going to be in a state of needing glasses, I want to have the affect that comes along with glass. I want to be able to take them off like in a dramatic moment.
And
Like
man, I am outraged way more than I should be just so I can do
yeah,
some
like it goes
glasses
back to the
motion.
microphone thing, like being able to lean into the microphone and be funny with it. It's like if somebody is like my kid says something, they need to know that I'm upset. Like like
There's it is my number one tool in the parent arsenal. There's like, think how much weight is behind the
night, Tristan.
one of those,
Yeah.
right? Give me
Oh
one of
yeah.
the
Yeah.
overlooked
Yeah.
ones.
Like
It's so
the
great.
like staring down the bridge of your nose, the glasses. Oh yeah, great.
Oh, good. Tristan, you had some questions I wanted to answer real quick though before you go. I don't know if he's still here. He asked, "Can you take us how through a how it's made for TMR episode?" I feel like this is a very abrupt transition.
I'm gonna
What do we
reset
do?
my point, and you're gonna read this, and I'm gonna use this opportunity to get wine.
Oh yeah, by all means. So Tristan's probably long since gone, but I'll answer for everyone else because I know y'all want to know, you guys and girls, and
Yeah,
other variations.
the
Uh,
best questions is answering how the sausage is made.
right? Everybody wants to
Everyone wants
know.
to know. Yeah.
Um, so we pick a book that we want to cover. So lately we do deal with more recent releases, mainly because it's just what I'm. Not that it's about me, but it's what I'm interested in talking about. Because whenever a new book comes out, that's what I'm actively reading in the moment. So I want to talk about it with people. It's the latest, the greatest. Depending on what type of book it is, whether it's a novel or a battle tome or campaign book, we have like a different outline that I just reuse for each of those different types of books, contents, things that are coming out. There's a lot of standard questions that like are already pre-built into our outline. I get people's the cast members' input. Who was your favorite character, or what did you learn that you didn't know before, or I don't know, just the other. There's a lot of standardization in it. I was talking before how I'm not a particularly creative individual, which is why I need to make an outline and stick to it repeatedly because I don't have to create something new all the time. Um, it makes things easier in terms of prep. It makes things easier, even like in editing, because people kind of know what's coming, and you don't have to hem and haw and like maybe rearrange different parts of the show. So that's a recommendation I would give. If you can keep it standardized, it really, sure, it maybe locks you in a little bit, but at the same time, I think it makes it easier to get out a consistent show. So I'm all about that. What other points can I make about how our show is made? Mm, It I think we have a lot of people who on our shows who like to talk, and so it's always sort of a battle in terms of it's not a battle, and that makes it seem like it's aggressive. It's not aggressive at all. But making sure that everybody gets a chance to shine. I'm guilty of over talking people, and I'm trying to be better about it. But it helps by doing a lot of that pre-work, so people know the things that they want to talk about, and then that helps them give the opportunity to speak up and talk about the things that are interesting for any book or show that we're covering. So I advocate for that too. Um, I don't know if that answers your question. I hope it does.
I hope it did too. So I actually had a point I was
Yeah,
spiraling towards with that criticism
yeah.
thing.
Give me. Bring
Okay.
it back.
So this went back to the artists hearing you now, like the
Sure.
writers hearing you now. Um, and it really kind of comes down to like how you critique something.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is like learning how to qualify something you think is a huge difference, in how it comes across to people, and we know like it always sucks for someone to tell you that they don't like the thing you like. I always think of the song Not a Surf from like the 90s, like I'm popular,
Oh,
you know
sure.
I'm never last picked, like I got a cheerleader chick or something, and he just and one of the spoken lines is something
You know that.
like, yeah. One of the spoken lines is something about how, like, getting dumped sucks because even though you haven't really been going out for that long, it always hurts to be told that they prefer the company, the company of somebody else besides your exclusive company, or it's something along those lines. And I always think about that, like, sort of that emotional statement. Like, it always sucks to, like, hear that somebody prefers the company of somebody else over your exclusive company, right? Like to hear that. And I always feel a little bit of that is, just change the word, like the words slightly. And like, it always sucks to hear that somebody doesn't like your show, or it always sucks to hear that somebody doesn't like your book, or it always sucks to hear that somebody doesn't like the mini you paint. It always sucks, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that goes back to that, like, that distance, but it's a lot easier to parse if it's not like if it's not phrased in like the language of attack or cynicism.
Sure. Or it can suck less
Yeah.
if there is whether and not that I'm ever trying to give someone recommendations as to how to make their book better, because God, that's the last thing I have no business making those
Mhm.
recommendations. But at the very least, if I can get to the core of why I didn't like something, understanding makes the suck less, right?
Mhm.
If they can at least point to something, or maybe it's just a subjective component to whatever reading. I don't like this just because it's not for me. Then
Yeah.
the author doesn't have to feel
Yeah, that's different. Yeah,
bad
that's
about it or
way different.
anything.
Like, this isn't my normal genre.
Mhm.
Like, that's a very, like, and then, being able to still weigh in on it and be like, look, this could be like, goes a huge way to not present yourself as an expert on the thing too. First, like, if you're like, this isn't my normal thing, I'm outside of my wheelhouse here. I mean, take this with a grain of salt. Sometimes that's all the affect you need, or that's all. I keep saying the word affect tonight.
I
That's
like
all
it.
the,
It's a
like,
good word.
qualification you need to, sort of blunt that whatever you're about to say. There's a reason I don't play Mass Effect 3 on stream, and people donated to force me to do it, because I tear into that game at every layer of it,
Mhm.
and I cannot be charitable. Like, I am not capable of, like, any qualifying
Impossible.
statement I can make will not save the scathing, like, problems I see with that game and how I'm going to say it. Um, but, like, Halo. I used to be really critical of Halo. I did not like how, these kids were on my lawn. I had played, FPSs for a while, and I thought it was a ripoff. And it took me years, 2 decades, to look back on Halo and go, that wasn't ripoff, that was homage, and I didn't get it.
Sure, yeah.
And that shift in perspective, but, like, all my cynicism and of basically being grumpy that people thought suddenly were discovering shooters and telling me this was the best shooter of all time, and I'm like, no, it's the only shooter you've played. And, like,
Mm.
for whatever reason, that was an important sticking point for me to, like, be this erudite elitist douchebag to people and assert that my taste is older than theirs and more informed than theirs. And, and I just, it's fatiguing these days, like.
Or not to make it an age thing, it's just that I mean I'm now too old for for
Is
feeling
is
that
that
way.
what it is? Like,
I don't know, or it's in the same way that I can't drink to the same amount that I used to be able to, because literally my body can't handle it, and so maybe in some ways physically my body can't handle that level of negativity anymore. I wake up feeling like I can't handle the negativity hangovers anymore when I wake up the next day.
that's
Um,
possible.
right? And I'm already dealing with so much of nonsense that I'm already negative about not negative, but
Well,
like so many other things are weighing on me. I don't
well,
need this weighing on me too.
that's why it's really hard for me to care about the FAQ. Not this past year, but the previous year, like a mid global pandemic, and it was just like people screeching, "When's the FAQ?" And I didn't want to be dismissive of people's emotions, because, like, if that was the one thing they were looking forward to that month or
Sure.
whatever,
Yeah.
I understand being disappointed. But me, I couldn't I couldn't manufacture a fuck to give. I'm like, people are dying. The last thing I care about is the FAQ for a game nobody's playing during a fucking pandemic. And I was so, like, and there's that like I don't know, like even I feel like that feeling I had then was too much.
Yeah,
Like
even
that
that.
was mean. That was like that sort of dismissing of just half of a fandom because like people were looking forward to a thing, and I'm like, you motherfuckers looking forward to a thing. And I like flip
How
the table at them, like,
how dare you?
you know, I
Um,
still feel like dismissive toward that basic mentality of like the release hype and the what did you expect they were going to do with
mhm.
these factors, and like I still have some of that dismissive, but I try to temper it. Um,
I'm right there with you. I mean, I feel the exact same way in that like my knee jerk reaction is to also be dismissive of those again like the reactions, and I have to fight so hard to keep my mouth shut for the reasons that or some of the reasons that you brought up, and that like yes, just because it's not important to me, I gotta understand it's important to these other people, and maybe Aaron of years past would endeavor to try and convince these people that the thing they care about isn't worth all their energy. But that's not fair. Like that's a very naive, immature way to approach these things.
yeah,
And it's interesting or something I'm realizing is that being so close to that element of a fandom makes it so much more present and sort of in my face. Like I'm in the same Twitter circles that you are. I see the same people online having the same reactions to these things. And like I want to part of me wants to like be like, no, guys, you're acting crazy. You're overreacting to whatever their current outrage is in the moment. But the world is like as we've talked about all night essentially the world is full of outrage about all sorts of nonsense stuff, and these are just the people that I see because they're just directly in front of me.
yeah.
There's no use in trying to change anybody's minds. They're if they're going to be passionate about this thing, you just got to let them be passionate about
Well,
it.
this is where I disagree. Not the
Ooh,
passion
tell
point.
me.
Like, let people be passionate. I do think that like that there needs to be a refresh to how we discourse. Like, I think whatever community you're in is as fine a place to start as any, whether it's
That's
nerds
true.
or I think part of it part of it resolves rewiring yourself, your brain,
Mm-hmm.
because like it's all communication is multi-layered, multifaceted, and it's going in different directions, right? There's
Yeah,
um
bi-directional,
you know
tri-directional.
yeah, try like it's triangulate, it's bouncing all around, right? Communication's weird. And Ulf Paints here said something earlier that just ties right into this. He says discourse can also equate to attacks on the internet. So somebody just like saying something very benign to you, like in disagreement on the wrong day and the wrong headspace, you take it as we have to debate this, as opposed to,
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, he just said something innocuous and move on. I am thankful that chat gang and the friends in my life and the relationships I've been forming as an adult here have a higher they have a higher threshold for me than I think I would have for me. Um,
Okay. Well,
with like sometimes I just go in.
what a blessing, huh?
Right. Well, I go into I go into my Mephisto modes. Like I tunnel vision on a thing and I rant on it, or I there's basic. We should have a. I need something for my soundboard that plays like the Soviet anthem every time I
Mm-hmm.
accidentally go into an anti-capitalist like screed or something like that.
Sure.
Just a one button, and then like I'm self-aware about it. I'm like, okay, I could talk about this stuff
There's
like
going to
this.
be a flowing
Yeah, like it's
a
just like
flag
I
behind
get a
you that
green,
you're
yeah, like
kicking.
a green, it just comes up and I'm not a communist, I'm an anarchist. We're different. Okay. But like anytime I feel the need to distinguish that, I should fucking like reset the clock. Like and for people to be like, not everyone thinks on the same like, layers that you're thinking on, but you still generally agree with people because most people just, want to play games, take care of their families and like, not perish.
In that order:
Yeah,
play games, take care of their family, not perish. One, two,
right,
three.
right. But yeah, so like I think we need to and this has just been on my mind, talking about like consuming content and stuff like that. I've just been like reading and pontificating, and I've been locked in my own head for the last, well, since my diagnosis with ADHD, CPTSD, depression, bipolar, all that stuff. Um, so like since I've just been like thinking and thinking and thinking, and just like the nature of discourse and how me, and I'm projecting when I say like I think we need to rewire how we talk to each other, especially on the internet. We are in the transhumanism phase of the internet. It is
Mm,
happening. Like the microchips aren't in our brain, but They might as well be, because the emotions, the serotonin, the dopamine, that shit is, and
Yeah.
it's happening. Um, and to like, yeah, set the example in your community. Like to start tempering yourself a little bit better, approaching other people when you disagree with them with a little bit more empathy and compassion, and like just kind of living that life and preaching. You're not preaching. You never preach to anybody. Like, fuck that. I'm gonna go contrarian immediately if you tell me what to do and give you
Hmm.
double guns and walk away. But setting the example and sort of rewiring your discourse, and I think that's just stuff we can do in Warhammer, because the game is growing, and I have this latent fear that we're going to become like 40K, and I'm
When
not a
things grow, they often do, right? If not, I mean, if not 40K specifically, just generally,
yeah,
like
whatever it is,
any fandom gets big enough to
you're
crush itself under its own weight.
right, and if you ask me in any other axiom of my life outside of like my nerdly vices, or even in other nerdly vices, I will tell you any behaviors you're driven to via fear are often misleading ones. They're often lies.
Hmm.
Fear is a reactive emotion. Furthermore, it's a reactive emotion that turns off our higher brain function and does like a lot of bad stuff. It's really great at like getting
Fight or
you to
flight.
run from a saber-toothed tiger and shit. It's really bad at getting you to understand what somebody's saying when they say, I was disappointed when Gargants came out."
What if it was a saber-toothed tiger telling you that they were disappointed when Gargants came out? No, not now. I don't know what to do.
Okay, my wires, like my lizard brain is like, I should run, but then my like curiosity brain's like, did I just discover like a fucking cryptid or some shit? Like now I'm having
You're
like,
supposed to be extinct.
yeah,
Let's
I'm like
tackle
I need
that.
to, I'm like fear, huh? But like you're
Where
yeah
did you
you
learn to
yeah how
talk?
where did you learn to talk? Like like, is this the moment my psyche finally broke? I was under
Yeah.
a lot of stress. Like, I have so many other responses than like fear in that situation.
But those responses were all wrong because that tiger just ate you.
Yep, fear was the
You
right one.
failed
Fear was the right one.
my mental test.
Yeah, fear
Yeah.
was the correct one. Yeah, my cryptid
Yeah.
bias comes in. My internalized cryptid bias.
Yeah, there it is. Cryptid
Yeah,
bias.
yeah.
Fun.
I think yeah. So like AOS being a passion thing, I got it all the way back. Look at that,
Yeah, circled back
one
around,
point
right?
five hours, and I was able to pull it all the way into AOS finally. Like this thing that's just been a me thing and not an
You're,
anybody else thing. Sorry, you got to be my sounding board for this.
no,
Um,
don't apologize. What a privilege. We lucky few. Um, I do agree with the idea of setting an example. Maybe my version of setting the example is keeping my mouth shut, I suppose. And maybe one could or I should do a better job of being a more active example out there. I don't know if I'm capable, and it's safer. I know I can make maybe better decisions by through how one might comport themselves on the internet versus active trying to actively steer the conversation in a better
well,
director
I think.
direction.
I think. This is going to go in the video description, the down there part, as I like to call it. Like thinking about sort of like this sort of the phases of the podcasting scene.
Mm.
Like sort of like y'all Warhammer Weekly. Would have been Scrubby and Wells. Like, you sort of had those podcasts I wasn't around to hear in the like the 2015. Those first
2015, yeah.
those first 2 years, like the stuff I wouldn't even heard. You sort of had like those. I guess you used to say the Vanguard, right? Which is a nice little pun because
Yeah.
va-
Wish.
Vanguard wing.
Yeah, no, well, exactly. I mean, it's how very thematic.
Yeah, yeah. So like you had sort of like the Vanguard era of AOS
Hmm.
podcasts and AOS in general, where that community did get kind of like sort of stripped of its everything. It was stripped
Yeah,
down to
it's
the bones. Warhammer
to the
Fantasy,
studs.
yeah, down to the studs. Like, the guy wearing the Reapers of Bones shirt would say bones, of course. The
Oh, I should have wore a Mortal Realms shirt or something. I didn't
yeah,
even think about that. Damn it.
I see. I was thinking about wearing my own merch, because I'm like, is he gonna wear his own merch? I'm like, no, it's lore, so I'm going to wear a shirt that, for one of the armies I like the lore of. And I'm thinking,
It's awful because I have to start using my camera for work now, which is a new development, and so I mean, not that I can't, but I'm not gonna like wear our shirt
You
inside of work today, and I'm
absolutely
not gonna.
should. Just no, you actually shouldn't keep work separate because if they find out you have a podcast, then now not
Right.
only do you have to tone police yourself for like
Yeah.
shitting on people who write books, now you can't like off the cuff accidentally make a quip about work.
I was just about to say I make jokes all the time about how I'm not working. Like I can't have that caught up. And what sucks is if you these days if you Google my whole name, it's not any sort of professional stuff that shows up. It's my
Fu-
cheaty podcast.
yeah, yeah,
Uh, Jocks. We were talking about shirts.
yeah. The Vanguard.
What were we gonna?
Talking
Oh
about
yeah.
like sort of the Vanguard era getting stripped down to the studs or the bare bones,
Hmm.
where they're really the baggage of Warhammer Fantasy Battle, the toxicity of that community was essentially like dialysis out of the game,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right? And
You set of kidneys like got
yeah,
cleared them all.
yeah,
All.
and I think you had this period where like the community did have to build it back, and it was the community's game, and adding those layers to it, and then you had sort of that like sort of second wave of podcasters with basically 2.0
Hmm.
with the 2.0 coming in where the fan size had essentially doubled. I think you kept a lot of the core tenets of the community. The general positivity, the general communal aspect. But I think we can still be better. I think we can still do a better job of inclusivity and like putting ourselves out there to
Yeah.
like invite more people into our game because again the fear response is the shit response just as
Yeah.
that's my personal belief. It
No, I
just
think you're right.
whenever I recognize a fear or anger response to like any stimulus I'm like like that's when the skeptic glasses go on and I'm like we must we must look closer and figure out what's going
Sure.
on here like the little steampunk extra like lenses of magnification like come down. I'm like,
Yeah.
what's going
You
on
zoom
here?
in.
Yeah, I'm
Those are often where like the gatekeeping mentalities come from, right? I think if you break it down, like a lot of that,
probably a
and
fear
maybe I'm being a
response.
little too charitable, but to some degree, I think it stems from a fear, or and then tied into some sort of
And
anger.
fear, I mean,
Um,
fear often gives way to anger because
yeah.
fear lets us. It basically tells us, that's going to trigger fight, flight, or freeze. Like, and that happens in dialogue too. By the way, you're still in fight, flight, or freeze with dialogue. This is why we have something like the backfire effect essentially happens where like you're in fight or flight. So anything someone says to you to try to convince you from off of a position, you're in your lizard brain mode of like you're either going to argue with them or you're going to like
Hmm.
agree to disagree and peace, and you're never going to like get them to reassess whatever it is they believe.
Sure,
Uh,
sure.
um,
No, I definitely get that. But so all the more reason why when you say fear reactions are pretty terrible reactions. If gatekeeping is based in fear, then it inherently, I think, is a negative result. But talking about the core or the core element of the AOS community as it started, it I like the idea of dialysing out
I like it. Yeah, making it
a
a
lot of
verb. Yeah,
the negative elements, right? So because if you do end up with if we did start with what ended up being a relatively more positive core, that I think works in the community's favor as it grows, in that when you have a community and people are getting added to it, more often than not all the time, but more often than not, you're going to have folks who are going to try and fit in with the community that already exists. And if the community that already exists at least has some element of positivity to it, chances are the people who are going to try and join are going to want to fit in to the community that's already there, right?
I agree.
And maybe in some ways it'll gradually drift
Hmm.
as time goes on, maybe away from that positivity, but it's better to have started with the positivity
I
than
agree, a
to have
thousand
not
percent.
started with it.
Yeah,
Yeah. So ideally, people inherently want to fit in, right? And if you're going to start accumulating more people, um, again, on average, I'd like to think that those people are going to try to fit in with the positivity that already exists. And so, I think we have that going for us at the very least.
I agree. No, I 100% agree. I even kind of like outlined like I don't think the outrage merchant style of AOS content is as prevalent as any like it certainly is in 40k. Like there's tons of outrage merchants in 40k.
Sure.
And even when like what is it, mini wargaming is one of like the kind of like pseudo big ones that does like battle reports and stuff. I don't watch
Hmm.
their stuff, so this is like an
Yeah,
osmost opinion. I have feel free to correct me in the comments. Like um
and they will.
but basically like this I get the perception that people like them a lot for 40k, but like a lot of people don't like them for AOS because they have very specific show like runners that will kind of smack talk AOS as they're playing AOS, and like our community kind of recoils from like negativity about that. Like we like negativity, yeah, on that level, which is like like people just seem in general, like obviously like some people are the negativity bias tends to be a lot stronger than other types because
Hmm.
negativity
Hmm.
bias was favored for evolution. It's how we lived by focusing on the bad stuff that could kill us. And so we're naturally going to like have a gravity towards towards recognizing the negative. It's just
Bringing it back to biology, evolutionary
right.
biology, I
Yeah,
think,
I mean, you
speaking my
could be telling
language.
me
Yeah.
more about this. You know way
I
more
don't
about
know.
this than I do, I'd
Years and
imagine.
years. I do IT now. I'm not in the hard sciences anymore.
But yeah, like
Um,
yeah, but no, like, and now I think we're at a decision point. I think for the community, with 3.0 sort of officially being here and the first battle tomes and boxes on the horizon, like for real. And
mm,
furthermore, you look at like I'm not great at partitioning my life from everything. Like some people are really great at compartmentalizing like all the little things, but I,
mm,
I think that you said something about like escapism. When the pandemic was kind of in swing, and it helped to have this as an escapist thing. And yet, I can't help but feel that like that. Yes, I agree, but I also
mm.
can't help but feel that like escapism is still like bungee corded to reality,
Sure. Yeah.
and as the
And
world.
sometimes the harder you escape, the harder reality has to like
Yeah,
literally pull you
yeah,
right back in.
yeah, exactly.
You can feel that. Like that's a real noticeable feeling, I think, in my life, and I think other people probably feel that way too. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so like as reality sort of is, spinning as it's going to, and there's sort of this moment of inertia about to be broken over
mm,
whatever. I can't predict what's about to happen, but it just there's a feeling that like, you know, that like, either the pandemic becomes endemic, or and we switch our strategies. We're already seeing, it's going to be different across the world. Like there's just this feels like a moment that is inescapable.
sure, true.
And the game being sort of that escape is vice, I feel like that bungee cord is about to like go taut, and they're not necessarily going to collide, but I think that the changes we're going to see in AOS as a community going forward can't help but be linked to reality, you know, in some way, like osmosing or absorbing feelings of stuff or
Mm.
whatever random things are. Something's going to happen. Revolutionary, I know something is going to happen.
So you're saying something's gonna happen,
Something's
huh?
going to happen.
Hmm.
All right, I want you to.
And nothing's gonna not happen,
Right,
to
right.
put it a
So
different
I
way.
guess what I'm saying is something's going to happen.
Okay, well, Mark timestamp this one
Well,
right here.
this is my
Uh,
best prediction. I usually pride myself on my sort of predictive abilities with the game, just
well,
because.
with predictions like this, how
But
can you
like with
lose?
this
Yeah.
one, this is my best one so far. No, Brendan really early on. Brendan Melnick. I wasn't a podcaster, but I was still variety streamer on Twitch and stuff like that. So some people would like happen to accidentally find my Twitch stream. Just like
Whoops.
yeah.
Mm,
Um, And I remember him telling me like like I would like it was really good at meta analysis and coming up with lists, and he'd tell me put a flag in it basically, and I took that to mean very similar to like what I learned in college and stuff, which is be specific. So when you're
mhm,
when you're going to make an analysis of something, you have to be specific with it. Um,
sure.
so I've absolutely betrayed that right now, but usually I'm a lot more specific with my stuff. But no, I think that there's sort of like this is sort of a pivotal point for AOS, and I think life has a moment too. We're seeing cultural movements that we haven't seen since the Industrial Revolution, a renewed interest in
Mhm.
labor rights. Like you look at like even that criticism is percolating into Games Workshop. Are they paying their employees enough? Like, are the
Yeah,
writers getting
true.
enough credit? Like, those things are inextricably linked. Is kind of what I'm saying, and I think we have this pivot point. We just had like a big that's fucking shit with the Spanish tournament, and Games Workshop had to release their new policy with
Mhm.
to tap the sign to remind people that Nazis aren't cool. Like they
Sure.
just
To
there's
make me tap the sign.
yeah,
Yeah.
Simpsons, right? Yeah, like they Nazis still not cool. Like gotta tap the sign, I guess. Apparently, fucking people didn't get the memo. It just feels like we're seeing these things sort of like bounce back and forth between reality and our game, because systems are linked. That's how the world works.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that right now, as I see people sort of in 40K or Dungeons and Dragons, like Dungeons and Dragons right now, uh, from monitoring that community, a lot of them feel like Dungeons and Dragons is solved, and
From
uh,
like a mechanic standpoint,
well,
or from like a cultural mores standpoint.
well, like you had like this big wave of just like we had like a huge wave of like sort of AOS 2 babies,
Hmm.
for lack just like AOS 2 interest. Our fan base essentially doubled right there.
Yep.
Uh, um, there's no way to know the exact numbers, but going off of sales figures and like sort of like number of tournament turnouts and podcasts, and those numbers just all basically doubled. Um, so the that happened with 5th edition and Dungeons and Dragons.
I'm a fifth baby.
Yeah,
That's when I started.
huge cultural surge. I, I think you have two very, very specific sort of things that occurred, which is Stranger Things and Critical Role.
Hmm.
So two very, very specific things. But now, like the people who had never really played who had never really played an RPG before, like they've played Dungeons and Dragons, and they're like, what else is out there? And that like sort of recruitment phase of D&D 5th edition and stuff like that. This is about around the point that that Wizards of the Coast probably has a 6th edition or 5.5 or something. They
They already
probably
announced the 5.5, haven't they? It's
have
coming
they.
up soon.
I
Yeah.
I totally
Well,
missed it.
I don't know if they've called it 5.5, but it's a definitive
Look
evolutionary
at me
movement coming up.
not paying attention to Dungeons and Dragons specifically for 2 years and being able to like call that it's about time for
But
5.5.
now I'm worried that I'm wrong, so someone else can quote or can correct me. But I'm pretty sure after this Monsters of Multiverse book that just came out just the other day, I think like the next couple things are supposed to be like
That
this.
makes
There's
sense why
new
some of my old
evolutionary stuff.
streamer friends were talking about a monster battle as a
Oh,
stream.
maybe.
That makes sense.
Mm.
Yeah, that makes sense now. Yeah. So like, I think we're seeing this. Like. So anyway, the point is like D&D players are, Wizards of the Coast is going to have to refresh their tree, and those D&D players are looking out. They're switching to play Soulbound, looking for
Yeah, they are.
um, and I think that a natural amount or a natural evolution is for some to come discover wargaming. So I think
Sure.
you're going to get
Yeah.
like an influx into 3.0 from that going on. Games Workshop is very, very good at growing their fan base. It's almost like it's the thing they focus on the most is new players.
Mm.
Yeah, I know.
I agree.
You do. Yeah.
But revolutionary, also a revolutionary.
Yeah. Hot take. So, like, it just feels like this is kind of like a kind of a significant point for the sort of AOS culture. To me.
It definitely could be. Yeah, no, and I agree. And so when you were saying that, I'm rewinding a while back, you just sort of mentioned how the real world and the game were sort of inextricably linked, and it's sort of impossible to separate the two.
Yeah.
I feel like the easy way to look, or where I thought you were going to go with it, was that it's just because it's such a social game and it requires sort of that physical interaction. And
I mean, that would be a
apart for
way
so long.
easier inference to make. I don't know why I didn't go with that, but yeah.
Oh,
Continue.
no, because no, but I think yours is more interesting. I was going to say that the in-person thing is, I think, was maybe an obvious or just a simple observation, but I think you can drill down farther like you did and unearth a lot more of these sort of cultural aspects. It's not just being able to look someone in the eye, but literally sort of the
I just
sort
found
of
out today
social
that that's
progress.
an ADHD brain thing too, by the way.
Well, I don't know. So the potential for social, whether it's social project or catching the game up to where society is headed, I think is something that is going to have to be maybe more reckoned with, or it's going to have maybe more effect, because eventually people will visit, be in person, but that doesn't solve things, or it just gets us back to where we were.
Yeah, and you still have that extra inertia
that.
coming back in, right? Like
Yeah,
that energy's got to go somewhere. Like that bungee cord analogy again. being repurposed slightly here, but that momentum, sorry, momentum's a better, not inertia. That extra momentum's going somewhere when it
Yeah,
comes
yeah.
when it's going somewhere, and we can either like harness it and redirect it into good stuff, or we can like let it just like explode and kind of wash all over everything. And I think it's important to recognize that like AOS for like a couple years kind of got to kick the can down the road a little bit, and
Mhm.
just like they're delaying releases, delaying some of the cultural mores uh,
Yeah.
of of and I'm not just talking about like social paradigms and social observations, but like the commodification of art, the reset the clock. Like the sort of colonization of our attention spans, basically.
Sure, sure, sure.
The entertainment dollar, like it's one of the most valuable dollars that companies seek of us, because like X money must go to food and living. Like that is set for
Hmm.
in like for people. The entertainment dollar is the precious one. That's the that's the
Yeah, yeah.
that's your
With
disposable income, right?
I was gonna say it's a variable dollar, and thus there is fewer caps on whatever that variation can be.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
there's almost infinite money that can be spent on it. And to to build on your point or reiterate, I guess one of the points that were being made before is, uh, given that we are all society seems as if they are reevaluating a lot of things that we held true about society due to this pandemic. People are again riding that momentum or using that same part of their brain to reevaluate any
Yeah,
number of things in their
and
life.
and
Their hobbies being a prime example. So
anything that intersects. One of the things I realized is I took RPGs for granted again, and I didn't think that would ever happen again. And I'm
how
like,
dare
I
you?
know, I miss them. I miss them so much. Like,
RPGs can hear you, man. They've missed you.
yeah, just like
Well,
Kevin Smith and Black Library writers. No, it's just yeah, like knowing how sacrosanct my family is to me, for sure. Like, not that there was ever really any doubt, but like, I'm an immovable object when it comes to my family time. And
mhm,
and feeling like I was robbing time from them to chase down extra ambitions for myself, and
true.
having to reprioritize. Like, if I did seasons, I mean, I guess we're technically in 3 seasons of AOS RantCast for me at 122.
Fun. How do you
Um,
define seasons?
I do it on weeks.
Oh, okay.
I
Well,
take
there you
no
go.
days off. I take no weeks off, so it's 52 episodes as a season.
Nice. Well, that's cool. That makes it easy. Yeah.
It doesn't, because I my math brain has to add 52 together twice every time. Like, I don't automatically jump to 104. I'm like 52 plus
Yeah.
52.
50 is a much rounder number. Have you considered 50?
And then I have to subtract it from like the episode number, which is 122, I think, for this, and then I have to do the
Take
math. Yeah,
take the holidays, 2 weeks of the holidays off, and then you're golden 50. Real round number.
I
Easy
should
peasy.
I should listen to that. Honestly, I'm just gonna retcon it. Nobody knows I've been doing seasons anyway.
Yeah,
So,
sure.
but what I was gonna say is, I feel like this is my affirmation. The magical Mr. Mephisto affirmation for AOS Rantcast.
Write this
Um,
down.
yeah, yeah. Get ready for this. Um, I'm I feel recommitted to my show. Not that anyone
Oh,
really
good.
thinks I don't think anyone noticed me like take off from my show or anything like
Mhm.
that. Or, Ulf Paints is in chat here, and he said one of the most important things I've heard in the last 6 months, which is, I was kind of lamenting that, like, I feel like, I was looking at the algorithm numbers and like seeing my numbers go down, and I'm like, what am I doing different now? Why is nobody watching my
Algorithm.
show? I know, but you can't. The brain. It just. I need. I
You just lied
need
to your face right there. I love looking at the numbers, so I
I
have no business saying that.
okay,
I
okay.
have
Like,
all
I
those
need the
concerns.
validation. Well, before I get to my affirmation, like, how the fuck do you? I could swear on my show. how
Okay,
the
sure.
how the fuck do
I swear
you
a couple times.
parse the numbers and the algorithm and shit like that? I mean, your show is relatively successful. Like, you know,
Depends
you're
exactly.
getting early product from GW. You have a substantial fan base. You're always one of the number one podcasts talked about whenever a new Facebook feed shows up with like, hey, what show should I watch? What are the best podcasts to check out? You're the number one or two answered when it's Age of Sigmar lore shows. It's either you or Doug from Two Plus Tough.
Dougie Fresh, man.
It's
I
the
like that.
only two. Like every now and then you get like a third like rogue or renegade like
Yeah, sure.
podcast that someone's like personal extra. But I mean, you guys have to my eye success. I'm very proud to be even tangentially associated with y'all because we share the same home turf, right? Like,
Yeah.
like Wisconsin's got three of the best podcasts in all of Warhammer. Get at
What is
me.
Wisconsin? What's in the water? Like, man, what's going on in Wisconsin?
Gary
I need to do a
Gygax is
better
from
job about.
Wisconsin too.
Oh,
Like it's,
oh, sure, yeah.
I
I need to do a better job about my that. I can't keep doing that false modesty thing because it sounds like I'm fishing when I do that, and that was not my intention, and I didn't
no
mean to.
no no
I
I
very kind words, and I really
no, it was
appreciate
a
you saying
really
that.
good
That's nice, yeah.
opportunity. I'm like honestly, if this was a show, you'd have like little like dynamics between like host and co-host, and and you'd play off really
And
good.
you'd have your cards, and you'd straighten them out on
Yeah,
your
yeah,
desk, and then
exactly. Yeah,
you'd flip through them. And
yeah, but no, like you guys. I mean, I look to you guys like I said, very successful. I admire everything y'all do, and when I even get mentioned in the same sentence as like the Mortal Realms or Cubic Shenanigans, I beam with pride, and then I've got that little like the shameless homerism,
yeah,
like
yeah.
Wisconsin pride
Shouldn't
going on, like our
shouldn't
podcast
show
could beat up your podcast, you know.
shouldn't show my Cubs hat. I feel like that's very
Traitor.
contrary to what we're
No,
talking about right
no,
now.
no. But like, your sports is different. Okay, I'm talking about serious stuff. I'm talking about
Real,
Warhammer right now.
real
Okay,
serious stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm
um,
so Midwestern. I can't sit here and listen to this. It's well, man, it's overwhelming, and I
but
don't know what to do with my
but you
hands.
said you like the numbers. Like, how do you see the numbers down this month and go, nah, we're good, or does that even? You said you like reading the numbers. Why do you like reading the numbers? What utility do you get out of them, and how do you like sort of temper whatever it is that happens when you read them?
Hmm, that's a good question. I should have thought about that being brought up. So maybe some element of it is I'm a competitive person, but I don't like to compete, and so this is me competing with myself. Isn't that always the greatest challenge? Is you shouldn't compete against other people. You're supposed to
No, a
compete
thousand
against the
percent.
person
I
you
think that's
were.
where humility comes from. I think competing
Com-
with yourself is actually a source of humility.
You don't got to beat other people. You got to beat the person you
Well,
were yesterday.
you
So
can't
that's
lie
one
to
element of
yourself.
it.
Yeah, you can't lie to yourself. You
Yeah.
know if
So
like you can tell us you can iterate a story about like how you owned somebody in a tabletop Warhammer game, and you can exaggerate like people can look at the W, they see like went 4-1 5-0, they can look at the record, but you can
mhm,
always editorialize just how awesome you were in that
sure.
victory, right? Or you
And
can
it's how in your mind in the moment versus what your opponent was in the moment. So there's so much
yeah,
subjectivity to that.
but when
Yeah.
it comes to you, like you really can't lie to yourself when you're competing
Mhm.
against yourself. You know if you
Yeah.
lifted more today versus yesterday. You know if your numbers were up today versus yesterday. You know if that thing that's been on your back that's been bugging you, for a week is still there or not. Like
Hmm.
2 weeks, whatever it is that's been beating you, you know if it's there or not. You
Yeah. True.
can project and lie, and you can kind of like minimize it, and you can reason with yourself. But at the end of the day, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Um. So there's and to that point, when I guess the numbers go down, it's a little bit of a puzzle to try and identify. Well, what would the cause be for this? Was it something I did? Was it something extraneous? Some uh, external to any of the things that we're doing, because it's just as likely it's one or the other. Like it
Yeah.
for every uninteresting topic that we're covering that people don't want to listen to, there's probably just as many down months because people interest is low because there hasn't been releases in a while, or what have you. Um, a lot I won't name names. A lot of people on the network don't like the numbers. They explicitly refuse to look at them, and they very much are in it for the enjoyment of the act of the creation of it. And in the same way that I was saying before, that I'm not necessarily a creative person per se, is I do like doing the show. I like talking with my friends, and that's an enjoyable thing. But it's not so much the creation of the thing that I
Hmm.
like, but it's the mechanics, it's the logistics of the thing
Hmm.
that I'm creating. Which some people, maybe I'm just wired different
No, no,
than
no. I mean,
others.
you're getting a different. You're saying like I like telling stories. So what I mechanically am doing for my show, that's why this is I like conversation. I like storytelling. You know,
Sure.
this is why do I love RPGs? It's a conversation basically.
Yeah,
It is a
exactly. Hmm.
you're conversing. I get to have extra conversations because I'm 20 different people, which turns out is similar to ADHD brain anyway.
Right? You're making a lot of connections, huh?
Yeah, no,
This is
this
gonna
has
be
been my
a
life. This
never-ending
is
discovery for you. Yeah.
people are lucky that they haven't gotten like a full like rant show in a while because I've had so many things I've been thinking about. No, I've had to stay on topic for the last few ones. Um, no, no. So
Right.
like, but you're getting like a mechanical utility out of it. Like you like you're saying like you don't like creating, but I think you do, just not in the like we think of like creativity as this like sort of like flighty, Im,
Mm.
malleable, ethereal thing. But no, like putting together. Like, it's the same people who say like, "Oh, I'm not an artist. I just paint minis," and I'm like, "That's art." But they
I
don't think
mean,
of it like
but
that.
I don't even paint minis.
Sure, sure,
But
sure.
I understand your point, though.
But
Yeah,
you're
no.
crafting a show. That is an act of creation.
Yeah.
Like you
I
have.
mean, I suppose that's true, and I don't have any way to refute that. So I think you're probably right on that regard.
Oh, I could have gotten like I could have got real pedantic with it, which is the art is the core of artisan. For a period in human history, there was no such thing as art for the sake of art. All
Okay.
artists were artisans. So
Yeah.
like at one point we gained leisure and luxury time. So like a blacksmith was an artisan.
Artist. Yeah, true. I mean, that's absolutely
And
correct.
so art
A
for the
carpenter
longest
artist. Yeah.
time was just a craft. Doing it for leisure is where we decided it was art. But it's
Hmm.
always been like a craft.
Yeah, that's actually. I'm gonna sleep. I'm gonna fall asleep thinking about that tonight.
Yeah. No, I didn't have to pull out the big guns though with art and craft though. You already bought. You already yeah.
Yeah.
You are. I
Um,
already got you on with the first point. Yeah. Go on.
Also, this is it's a doing the podcast is a way to learn a skill. Sometimes learning a skill just for the sake of learning a skill. So like maybe I wanted to be able to learn something and learn something that was applicable or something that I could use.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not to say that podcasting for the sake of podcasting isn't the goal, because again the goal is to chat with my friends about things that I have interest in. But if I could also learn how to accomplish or even accomplish well this thing that is podcasting,
Mm-hmm.
um, for me to know that I'm doing a good job at it, whether or not I'm doing a good job at it, I can look at you're getting a score, you're getting graded, and that's what those numbers are, right? And
Yeah.
so maybe it's a millennial thing, though. I guess I am. I suppose I'm a millennial, right? Because they say some aspect of millennialism is that people they always want feedback, they always want professionally, they always want
Yeah, like we're supposed to be
responses.
the newest, most anxious generation because we've had the most metrics on us,
Mhm.
essentially, in terms of like output and efficiency and
And here's another example of that. Maybe whether or not I thrive in it, if nothing else, it's an environment I'm used to. And so if I would never say I judge my self worth based off of those numbers. That way lies madness. God no. But it's a way to give a numerical value to something that I'm doing, and I get the dopamine triggers when I see that line goes up, and when the line goes down, I sit down and I think, right, well, why did the line go down? What can I do
try
differently
to problem solve it.
within the reason of I'm not going to do something I don't, like we were saying before. I'm not going to endeavor in a direction I don't want to go. But if it is tangentially related, if I can course correct slightly
Yeah.
to give people what they want, I mean, I want people to enjoy the thing that we're creating. Um, and again, the number is some indication as to what that is. Sometimes, other times, it's an indication of other external factors that I had no control over, and there's nothing I was going to be able to do to keep the number at its peaks or something like that. And you
Yeah.
also have to be okay with that.
There's
And
a
I think
little
I'm
bit of the
okay with
self
that.
compassion thing, right? Like
Yeah,
you're
right. I mean, I like to think I'm nice to myself.
yeah, sort of sorting through like sort of the extraneous or the noise. Like so you sort of like adjust for the noise of like, well, what is this? What else could be going on? Right. So you
Hmm.
adjust for
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
You give yourself a little bit of a distance from the numbers, and that
True.
cut yourself a break. You have some self compassion, and then from there you like you use them for what they should be, which is just utility. And
Yeah,
you
yeah,
get
yeah, yeah.
and when it gives you dopamine, you're like yes, and when it doesn't, you're like
Yes.
let's solve this, and then the puzzle
Yeah,
itself
yeah,
can become like a dopamine hit too, because you figure it out.
yeah. I mean, some people do Wordle, which I also do. That's their puzzle. But then my puzzle is I gotta make that dot go higher.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't block Wordle because I enjoyed seeing people's joy way too much, and there were people getting mad at everyone sharing their Wordle, and I'm like, why are you so upset?
Hey, hey, listeners, if you want a community of people who are doing Wordle, join. First of all, you're already in Meth's Discord, but if you need another Discord, join our Discord, where we have
I
a bunch of
think
people
I think the moral.
isolated. Oh, go
Yeah.
ahead.
No. You can join.
I was gonna say we
Keep.
just have a channel dedicated to Wordle, so there's a community of people who want to see your Wordle scores. They want to see how you do. They welcome you with open arms. So come join us.
Well, so first I'm going to say, Ulf, is that the stickers are in the mail, and I wrote it in the letter that I hand wrote and put in the letter with the stickers. So you'll see what you said that was so impactful. But
Yeah,
I'm going to
good
say it for
point.
the sake of the show because I left it. I can't leave y'all on a hanger or a tease here. Basically, I was I'm one of the most self-critical human beings. I think you'll perhaps personally meet. I'm very good at self-sabotage. I have a fucking journal here as homework from my therapist to write down every negative thought I have, and it wasn't good enough because I had already filled up one journal. I had to go out and get another one that I could keep with me uh, all the time and fill up more. Okay.
I think it's pronounced urinal though.
Urinal, yeah, it's a urinal. Oh man, it's a perfect sort of slant rhyme to urinal though, which
That's
is
true.
precisely what it is. It is a fucking soul urinal where I am pissing out all of my bullshit negativity.
I think we're on. I think you're onto something right there. I mean,
Yeah,
there's a way
yeah. I'm
to use
pronouncing it.
that to
So
your
I don't
advantage.
call I call I don't really call poetry. I say poems, but I say poetry because like
Oh, it's like
you're
a
like
tree from.
yeah, because
Uh,
I'm a very stream of consciousness style poet. Yeah, I'm peeing out my sadness into my urinal, and I will pronounce it like that for fuck ever now. You just couponed me. So I said coupon ironically for so long that it's just how I pronounce coupon now. I can't stop.
Open.
I try not to. It's coupon. It
Good.
similar thing happened with Nagash, right? Like Nagash is how I used to pronounce it because I learned how to pronounce Nagash via reading it. And
Yeah. There was that meme just a couple days ago or something. Like, don't shame somebody for mispronouncing a whatever word
word
just
it
because they
means
probably learned it reading it. Yeah.
yeah, and so I went and got my like trophy and I said Nagash and it's the first time I'd said Nagash and I don't know any time, but it was just like the child brain was what was engaged in and I pronounced it the way I did, just a slip, right?
Yeah.
And everyone laughed and made fun of me. And now I'm like, nope, it's Nagash now again. Like,
Own it. Yeah.
yeah, fuck you all. Like, no, yeah. So I'm very self-critical. Blah blah blah. The numbers were going down, and I'm like, why is my show like seem less successful now than it used to be? You know, I'm recording. I'm keeping a schedule. That's like the number one thing for podcasts is to keep a schedule. You know, or streaming any digital thing is a schedule. Just have a release schedule. I'm like, why is it going down? Is it my guest pool? Like, am I not bringing on famous enough people on often enough? You know,
What are we doing here?
well, you know, I tried to solve for zero. I tried to all the extraneous stuff. I'm like, is it because I'm not covering battle tomes week to week? Is it because I'm not covering tournaments week to week? And I'm like, well, one, nobody's really doing that stuff anymore. We're all locked down. You know, two, I never really did it to begin with. I do books that interest me, or like if someone in the like in chat gang or like a friend is like, yo, I'm really excited about this. I'm like, come on, because the only requirement for being on chat gang or being on my show is to like for me to kind of have a rapport with you or for you to be so passionate about something it just bleeds through and all I want to do is hear about it, you know.
Sure.
Like it's all about the passion. It's always been about the passion for something. And so anyway, I'm like, no, I'm kind of basically doing the same stuff. And like I noticed a couple things that I had changed in like my vernacular. I noticed my a couple of minor things. I'm like, this shouldn't be the reason I've shed 200 views an episode. You know, like, you know, I used to get 1,000 views an episode when I
Hmm.
first started out, like 1,000 every single week without fail. Um, and now it's down to not that. And passionate about Bone Planet, absolutely. And I was going on about it,
Sounds
and
like a euphemism, by the way.
yeah, Bone Planet. It's an inside joke. We have Chat Gang and we have inside jokes. Watch every episode of Rantcast to figure them out. Don't do it. Don't do it. Especially don't go back and watch the old ones. They're horrible. But
I'm not gonna sleep tonight. Let's do this.
No way. And if you do 1.25 or 1.5 speed run that shit.
Oh, sure. Kenny Lowell always tells me to do that. He's all about the fast forward.
Um, and Ulf said to me, like I asked him basically, and I don't know if I asked him like point blank, but I was talking about it, and he says I think that the last like these last months are the best shows you've ever made, and I'm like, like I said, self punching bag, really good at self immolating, and when the numbers are down, I'm like, that's a systemic, or that's a number I can point to that validates that my want to beat myself up anyway. Urinal. And and
I like that you like it.
yeah, that's great. I'm stealing it forever, man. I'll credit you the first couple times, but then after
No,
that,
that's fine.
it's
No,
out into
don't.
the
It's from a movie. I think.
after
I
that
didn't make it up.
it's out into the zeitgeist, and it's everybody's.
What is it from, though? It's from
I have
something.
no idea.
What is it?
I have no idea. Someone get at me in the down there parts. What's it from?
Someone's got to know.
Yeah.
What's it from? It's from a movie.
And so he said like these are the best episodes you've been, like the tone. I think I was talking about the tone. He's like, these are the best episodes you've made, in a long time. And then he joined my Patreon around that point in time. He's like this is basically why I joined your Patreon. And I'm like, huh. Just because I did feel like I was making like the best episodes I had made. I was just like, I felt like I was on fire. I felt like every episode I make, and then I'd look at the numbers. I'm like, why are they down? I just crushed it. This episode is awesome. Everyone should watch this episode. This is one of the best ones I've ever done. Look at the numbers; they're down. And and it was just every week, and it was getting in that loop. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And he just said, like, he just validated it. He just said, you've been making the best stuff you've ever made. And I'm like, that was kind of all I needed. And
Yeah.
it was one of those, like, I don't often quote Fight Club because like people got the wrong message from Fight Club, but he says losing all hope is liberating or something like that, or hitting rock bottom is liberating, and that was like kind of my moment where I was like,
What Nurgle says.
right, yeah, that was my Nurgle moment. I was just like, you know what, fuck the numbers,
Sure.
I was just like, and so I went like a total different direction because I crave validation. You have no idea. Like, it turns out like with the RS rejection syndrome is something really bad with ADHD. Like there are quantifiable reasons that I hate right now that like I've been diagnosed with ADHD and the bipolar stuff too. Again, that can of worms is different. I'm going to parse that one a little bit later. But everything, yeah, all these things that have been like things I have kind of like hated or resented about myself for so long, or saying self-deprecating things like it's weird in my head, or like that's just doing a Mephistoism, or calling my fucking show Rantcast because I can't stay on one topic. I jump around way too much, and like all these things, and being like, not only am I like the diagnosis of it, I am every one of them all the time, and then realizing all these little parts and components of this condition that I've lived with for 36 years with a lot of heavy self-coping, being like, oh, I didn't really struggle in school. And then like being able to go, except when, and when, and when, and when, and,
Light bulb goes off, yeah.
And doing that with basically every aspect of my life. So yeah, rejection syndrome, kind of a big deal. And the numbers thing is also like, because I'm going to fixate on the numbers and be like, well, why the numbers, and so like all that shit, and I'm now equipped with the knowledge of this shit. So like I was already like, you know what, fuck it, I'm not gonna look at the numbers anymore. Like I'm done, because I like measuring myself. I like my first competition myself too. It's how I keep my shitty competitive streak, which is the mean one that you can go watch VODs of me being an asshole in Blood Bowl during, or watch
Yeah.
old VODs. No, I've hidden all the VODs of me playing League of Legends. They don't exist anymore. Or you can watch me just fucking losing my mind in League of Legends. Like, the way I keep that in check is by measuring myself and not looking at other people. That's
Yeah.
how I check that. How did I? It can also be really bad because if I do bad in, like, to use League of Legends because it's the most recent example, if I'm competition against myself, that means that this game of League of Legends needs to be better than my last game of League of Legends, whether I win or lose.
Sure.
Because
Yeah.
that's how I measure myself. And so if I like feed two lanes, like because like my lane support didn't help me, and like I make all the excuses, but then I'm still gonna look at the numbers and go, I died twice more this game than I did the last game. Fuck, I'm getting worse, and then I'm gonna eat myself alive.
It's like a spiral, right? What is the
Yeah,
what's the term? You get tilted and yada yada.
yeah, the tilt.
Just as an aside, just I'll sleep in. Our numbers are down right now too, so it makes me wonder if it's a more external thing right now as opposed to anything you're doing specifically. I know that doesn't solve your core the core thing of what you're talking about, but hang your head on that for a
Well,
hot
I
second.
mean,
So.
giving myself information like that can help me towards self-compassion and cutting myself a break, right?
Yeah,
Because
okay, sure.
my impulse is to jump to like the sort of self-immolation.
Mhm.
And I have to actively reject it, and most of the time I can. I'm not just like the nobody who's ever met me will ever tell you I lack for self-confidence. Not a single person will say that is a trait I possess.
I like him, but like, ugh, not an ounce of confidence in him is the problem.
Yeah, like no, like nobody's ever like that Mephisto guy. No confidence there. Like no one will. But it's not about confidence.
Hmm.
Like I'm very confident. I'm where it's something else. It's
And
a
sometimes the confidence is a way to combat whatever
whatever.
a parallel but competing
Yeah.
emotion or feeling
Oh
or
yeah,
thing.
my arrogance when it turns inward, and I'm like that comes down to like the I'm mad at myself because I did give up those two deaths, but motherfucking lane support didn't listen to me when I said I was coming for a gank, and and then the arrogance jumps in there, or any conversation I ever fucking have on Twitter, uh, you know, if I'm not in the right headspace, becomes this like, if I misread the wrong two words and like we're on the right topic and I am particularly indignant,
Hmm.
I will not relent. You are getting browbeat into the ground until I have proven, like I said before, I'm projecting a lot when I talk about how we need to change our patterns of behavior on the internet. But it's also because I recognize that like some of it is emblematic. Some of my behaviors are emblematic of what I think is a broader problem with the internet. So
Sure, sure,
that's why
sure.
I project.
Um, and I like take this as the compliment I intended, but it seems as if you know enough about yourself that like you not that you regret some things that you say on Twitter, but you recognize that maybe you're not always in the greatest headspace when you say things on Twitter, or again, not necessarily that it's a regret thing, but like that you're willing to still put yourself out there like on the internet in that way. And that I'm so easily embarrassed that the idea that like I would say, or that knowing that I could sometimes be in the wrong headspace and maybe not put myself out the way I intended to,
Mm-hmm.
makes me so hesitant to even like engage in any of those conversations. And so when I think of myself as, oh, not that I'm above throwing down online, it's more that I'm like so hesitant to even
Mm-hmm.
risk the chance of not even misspeaking per se, but
Well, the embarrassment,
not
right, or
being in my
the
best self out there, that
yeah, or
like I
yeah,
have
okay,
to pull
but not
back.
not not presenting your best self. Yeah, you see, it's weird because like, so I took it was called the Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory, um,
That's a
and
mouthful. Good job.
oh my god, 567 true false questions. They had questions in there,
A plus on remembering the title.
and it's
Good job.
yeah, thank you. And they have it's true false, and I talked to Dr. Alex, who's minimum pants mafia. Everyone in the Midwest knows pants mafia.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Friend of the show. Talked to him about like how I took it, and he called it the X-ray of like mental health, and like it's very good at looking for exactly what it's looking for type thing. But like
Okay.
it's not like
Hmm.
a huge prescriptive thing. You need therapy, you need time, you need diagnosis is a delicate process for many people. Um, but like there were a lot of questions that were like like do you feel ashamed or regret, and like I didn't really have like a whole lot of like there were very few like true I feel ashamed or regret like answers.
Mhm.
anyone that was like framed around like shame or regret, like I don't really like. It's not that I don't feel shame, like a little bit, like, but it's always
Mhm.
like shame gets dealt with. Like
Yeah.
I feel shame and then I'm over it.
Okay.
Like it doesn't really like
It's a solvable sort of problem, or like
yeah, like I'll feel ashamed of something and then I address the thing I felt ashamed about and then it's like on to the next thing. So I
yeah,
don't
yeah,
really
yeah.
like yeah, like
Don't
it's
dwell on it. Mhm.
yeah, and like so like going into any given situation, the shame isn't there preemptively, you know? Shame is something in like in the past.
Which is a good way to put exactly how I feel. I feel preemptive shame about like
It's
I mean, how many times have I typed up a Twitter response to something and I'd be like, nope, not doing this, and then like, oh, I'll go because it's a preemptive
I,
shame. That's exactly what it
like
is.
we have the opposite problem. like it's like I need to show like not necessarily I don't think I need to feel shame of like a forethought, but I should have a little bit more impulse control.
I'm
You
just
know,
gonna say, some people call it impulse control, but I like pre-shame. I think is a better way
yeah,
I look at it.
yeah, like it just like it's just, there's yeah I don't know. It's interesting, and again I don't carry too much regret,
Yeah, yeah, I get what you're
because
saying.
it's hard to hang on to regret. And there was that small part in time where I'm like, oh no, I like talked about how I have like no regrets. It's gonna come back. I'm a sociopath. That's the problem I've had this whole time.
Where's the
I am.
sociopath test? What's that one called?
That's in there. That'll
Oh,
glean.
is it?
That's got some like
Oh,
sociopath stuff. Like I also
okay.
had like there were also some stuff about like systems and laws and stuff. And I'm like, I don't. I usually say I'm a dirty leftist because I don't want to explain anarchy, but I'm more in line with an anarchist or a syndicalist or whatever.
Put it in.
Labels only have utility for really just conversation. Like no human could truly be boiled down to any singular label, right? Like
And yet I'm gonna ask, put it in D&D alignment terms. Go.
the alignment aren't philosophical is the problem. Like
Okay. I
um
mean, but I hear anarchist, and
I
I
would
think
tell you
chaotic. Isn't that not the
I
same?
would tell you anarchist is chaotic good.
Okay. Okay. Awesome.
I would tell
One of
you
the
that
best ones.
yeah, I would tell you anarchy is chaotic good. It
Okay.
is you can't have anarchy without one a big cultural shift. There's no functional anarchy to be had in our current society as we know it.
Mm.
You you can be an anarchist, on various levels and modes of operation. But like you can't have anarchy as a system, and you antithetical as it is. You
Mhm.
can't have it or achieve it in our modern society because like we're too reliant on hierarchy and all these things that and power structures. Like anarchy is not against structure. It's just about like essentially like concentrations and hierarchies and stuff like that. And that essentially like any hierarchy is going to in any unnecessary hierarchy is going to result in some inequity of power.
Sure.
So like the best way to compensate this is like networks of mutual aid and like mutual responsibility and like dispersing it out so that basically no one person is ever in control of anything and you are basically only accountable to sort of yourself and each other.
Oh,
And uh, because any system will inevitably be coercive and
sure.
it's anarchy is a lot about direct democracy as much or even post democracy depending on who you want to talk to, like essentially about as much possible democracy as one can have, because if everyone has the most freedom they can possibly have and we're all inherently as creatures sort of one we are tribal, like we love to talk about like humans are violent inherently, and it's like sure, but like those violent tribes everyone talks about didn't make it out of the caves by being violent to all of each other. Those tribes die out when that happens.
Yeah,
Like
true.
there's actually humans have a far more prevalence towards cooperation than violence towards each other. Like um we've done study upon study on this. Like even the even the even the shock test I can't remember the name of and the prisoner test were both found to be very dubious in their
Oh,
methodologies and super
really?
slanted and biased. Um, just on a open philosophical question, how many people out there in reality do you think will uncoerced, meaning they're not starving, they're not paid to,
Yeah, if anything, the
Maslow's
poor people.
hierarchy of needs have been met.
Hmm.
Are going to grab a brick and just smash somebody's face in and kill them. The
Very, very
answer is
low.
about 4%, by the way.
That's honestly higher than I thought it would be.
Yeah, it's about 4% by the rounding up to be charitable to opposition to my point. It's
Gosh,
probably in practicality much less.
sure. All right.
We're
Mm.
just humans are lazy, absolutely, and
It takes effort to do so, and you
right. Malice takes effort. Never attribute to malice what you can attribute to incompetence or laziness.
and the fear of retribution is often so very high that it keeps a lot of people in check, regardless.
Yeah,
So
you don't actually need some sort of like you don't need some sort of like hierarchical like legal shame system. Like public shame is plenty effective. We've
yeah,
seen.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to go into like blah. The point is like we're not there. Um, and fuck, what got me on anarchy?
I can't remember.
I'm not trying to
Um,
sell anybody on my shit belief structure. By the way, um, it's what got us on this topic? Usually, I'm really good at like going all the way back to the thing. It was
the
anarchy.
the D&D theme was a reaction to the anarchy. Anarchy started before the D&D
Chaotic,
question.
yeah, I mean chaotic good though, because like without mutual aid, without the sort of like you know needs of the many type thing, and
Mhm.
without it just doesn't.
Utilitarianism.
Yeah, very yeah, material utility stuff like that. What got us on D&D then? You asked me and then what was before it? Come on, help us out, chat gang. Let me read this. Um, Apparently we were discussing something called the token economy. Likes, clicks,
Like clicks,
downloads,
downloads.
etc. Which could very easily be weaponized against oneself. It's true.
Trying
Uh,
to think why I don't weaponize it against myself. I'm trying to if I've learned anything that I can impart, and I don't know how I can. Maybe it's just I've been. I don't know how to point to it. I don't know why when the number goes down, it doesn't. It's a call to action. Not I don't beat myself up over about it, and I want other people to feel that way too.
yeah.
It sucks if numbers bring people down. I don't want the numbers to bring people down. And if there's any advice I could give, but I don't know what it would be. Other than if it is bringing you down, don't look at them.
Well, that's what I did.
Because
I
it's not
decided
worth
I'm
it.
not.
It's definitely not worth it if it's gonna hurt
I
hurt
can't.
you in any way.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about like there's some other societal thing going on if your numbers are down and my numbers are down too.
Oh sure, yeah.
And I've
That's because there's this kind of an AOS drought. At least on my end, I'm sure there's just
yeah, and I think
the
people are.
interest isn't there
I
right
think
now.
people are fed up with the nature of the discourse around AOS right now too.
Possibly, yeah.
I think people check out when the negativity peaks.
Mm.
Like not like a sort of constant and like pulsing level of negativity is great for engagement, but too much negativity and we just like fatigue and we're like, nope, fuck this.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go see what like D&D community is doing, or I'm gonna go switch over to YouTube or Instagram for a little bit. Like,
D&D is really negative right now too, though.
is it?
Um, well, yeah, people. Well, in some ways, again,
I've
from a
been divorced
social.
from the D&D community for so long. It's like I just it's like I don't know. Like I don't have anything against D&D. Every now and then, like I use it as like the butt of some jokes, but
Yeah, no. For the impression I'm getting is just it's changes made to long-standing. I don't want to get. I'm trying to paint it with a broad brush. Changes to long-standing preconceived notions about. I guess some part of it is about race, but it's not even just that. In terms of like literally races in the
the
game, it's a new paradigm. I think that Wizards is trying to approach, and anytime there's any sort of new paradigms, the
well
people
they're
who are
trying
used
to
to old
catch
paradigms
up
aren't
with
into it.
every other RPG out there that had already shed like some of their weird baggage from like racialized evil and racialized stuff like that. They even fucking Tolkien himself like his greatest regret he expressed was racializing the orcs.
Oh, really? I didn't know that because that gets brought up quite a bit. So
You can
I didn't know
quote
he
me
felt
on
that
it,
way.
and you can look it up.
Well,
Conversation with
I
I
don't.
believe C.S. Lewis.
I believe.
Um,
Yeah, I don't need. I won't
yeah,
look at it.
yeah. No, it's like when it's just so like I mean it's a conversation. I mean I like Gary Gygax, and I often call him Saint Gygax, but he was problematic too. And every one of these fucking people under a microscope, even me under a microscope, you're gonna find things you hate about
Sure,
me
I
too.
am.
Like
Yeah.
anybody. Um, so
His
don't.
kids, especially, or some of his kids, especially.
Well,
But.
Yeah,
Look into the
I mean, don't deify anybody, right? Like, just don't do that. Um, but like D&D has allowed you to pick stats not linked to race. It's been amazing,
yeah.
frankly.
I
I
think
mean,
that's been
good.
some of the start of what some people don't like. It has no skin off my back. Which is
Fear
fine.
response turns to anger. They're afraid of the change of this thing
Oh
that they've
yeah.
held. I don't. I remember the last thing I cared about D&D was when they had an opportunity to address the sort of like to address D&D races, and they released a book that said it's up to the GM, and that was like all they
Mhm.
did.
Sure.
And
They
then
do that a
it
lot.
sounds like they finally did something instead of just being like,
Mhm.
oh, let the DMs do it. So they finally actually did change something.
Yeah, well, it's a little bit of a mixture of letting the DMs decide and giving suggestion, or it's almost like the absence of suggest. I'm not getting all the detail. I'm not
Give
as
it,
closely tied into
yeah, and I don't know. Like I said, I've been off playing other RPGs that have their own like shit going on, and
sure.
V5 is kind of like my main go-to right now. Like I'm having a little renaissance of Rifts just because I had to do it for the one-shot incentives, but
Hmm. Hmm.
um yeah, I mean, something about alignment philosophy. It's gonna bug me. Internalized, problem like shame. We were talking about shame. I'm usually really good at resetting conversations. Uh, Gone
Well, we
forever.
think I started a Soulbound game again. We're in our second session, but we're doing the same uh campaign that I was gonna run for you guys when we did it. You and Dan and Charlotte and Eric, and so
I'm
their
not
first
upset.
session was the exact same first session that you guys did. We literally ended in the exact same spot. I mean, it was fine. I didn't mind, but I did all the same NPCs and basically was able to do it like a complete second time, which was fun. But then we did the second session where I got to like intro or like finish all sorts of not finish plot points, but like do the punchlines for a number of jokes that I was waiting to do. So in retrospect, maybe I shouldn't bring it up because it sounds like I'm bragging. Hey, I got to do all the things that you aren't
I'm only
that you didn't get
quietly
to do.
seething. Keep going with the story though.
Well, no, just that I'm super excited, and it's the reason what even got me to pick this campaign back up is now that Foundry has Soulbound baked into it now. So Foundry Virtual Tabletop is up and running on the Soulbound side of things, and that has rekindled my enthusiasm for the game, and so I'm excited to continue
Did
running more
anyone
games.
steal the uh
Uh, The Spyglass. No, no, no. Awesome that you remembered. They didn't. So I had them listen, or some of them listened to the episode or the thing that we recorded after we ran the first session,
okay.
and then one of them chimed in and be like, "I didn't know I could steal the damn Spyglass. I was totally gonna steal the Spyglass." I'm
Yeah,
like, "Nope, you missed the
movie
chance."
anarchy right there, not
Yeah,
philosophical anarchy. Let's go.
yeah,
I'm not bound by
really.
your rules. I'll steal whatever I want.
Yeah. So it
Avender
just
Rail is one of my favorite characters.
made me think of it.
Alleged Captain Avender Rail is one of my
That's an
favorite.
Avondale. Uh, so that was a who we'll definitely have to fire something up again, especially now the Foundry.
It,
Another great
if you need a
a great
guest NPC or something like what they do, like I'll come
first
on. I'll be a
first person
guest
I call.
NPC or like a quest giver for like a or like a DM PC that joins the party for one adventure.
Sure, sure, sure.
They got to help me go like get my father's gold back or something, and
Hmm.
turns out I
Yeah,
was a ghost the whole time. Whatever.
yeah. No, I should be taking notes, or I gotta write this down. Great ideas. I'll have to do so.
So you're relatively
I-
new to RPGs, which doesn't
yeah, fifth
seem
baby. I mean, as soon as fifth dropped, I knew like. Even when I knew what was coming, they were doing like the playtest. I'm like, well, this is going to be the time that I do it. I remember in college, a friend of mine wanted me to do, I don't know if it was 3.5 or even 4 at that point, fourth ed. But he was like, you want to do D&D? And me and my naive, I mean, I was deep into WoW. I was playing Magic at the time, but he was like, you want to play D&D? I'm like, nerd, God no, as if I was in any way above
I
that
love
whatsoever. I don't know what was wrong with me.
I love
Um,
the like sort of West Side Story like nerd sort of like
yeah,
separate like you know
exactly.
who's more
Uh,
nerdy type
uh, in retrospect, that would have been a perfect time in my life to be playing D&D, and I was absolutely not. Um, but then I learned some things about myself. I felt like, yes, this is actually the time where I should be jumping in. And it turns out so many, across across the world, people were also jumping in at the exact same time I was. So maybe I'm just a follower from some other term for that.
Trend chaser, something like that.
Yeah, quite possibly. But we've been playing. So I have a was weekly, it's bi-weekly now because we're doing Soulbound. We're alternating. I've been doing this for now 2 or 3 years now. The campaign that we're
That's
that
kind of
we're
awesome.
running.
That's awesome, actually. Are you
I'm a sucker.
GMing both, or
Yeah,
is it?
I do GM both.
Wow.
Man, it's like another example of talking about like the podcast thing is like it's nobody wants to run the game that I want to play in, and so it's a version of the Forever DM, and that there are other people
I
who
was
want
about
to
to say
DM, and that's fine.
congratulations, you're a forever DM. Like
Yeah,
this is
because
oh,
this isn't most people. I'm a sucker for like published modules. Like I'm very much a content consumer in that like when they publish like Soulbound and for D&D, I want to run through the books that someone else made. I'm not,
oh,
I keep
I
saying it,
love
and maybe this isn't true.
Elaine's modules. They've been pretty bang
Yeah,
on.
Lane's have been great. Yeah, yeah.
Um
I did a one shot with her when she some overseas convention they were doing one shots digitally, and I was able to get in on one of her games, which
I'm
was fun.
only a little
Which is,
jelly. So
yeah, that
so
was
not yeah. I don't feel shame, but jealousy and envy, like those.
strong ones.
No.
But it's something about me that for whatever reason I like running the modules. Nobody ever wants to run the modules. I've got all these books that like are sitting on my shelf.
Interesting.
I guess it's this shelf, and you can't see it right there. And so I'm like, these are just they're gathering dust on my shelf. If I don't run them, no one will, and so that's how I decide to
I
DM
think
them. So
modules get harshed on unnecessarily, unduly. A module's
I think
only
so
as like
too.
stuffy and confining as the GM makes it. You
Mhm.
know, you can always like improv with your party if they go off script a little bit. Like, and those are going to be for me, that's like kind of the best sort of synthesis is when you have
Yeah,
like
sure.
you've got that module, but you've got a GM who's willing to lean into some like indulge some player,
Hmm.
you
Well, I
know,
think you have to. Like
you know,
no one's gonna have any fun if you don't. So like almost a necessity to be able
yeah.
to flex
Yeah.
when appropriate. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but I stopped running modules largely because my players like pretty much refuse to do any of the plot in a module.
Fortunately, my players know what I'm doing, and so they're accommodating in that regard, and they let me. So we even call the session that we do we call it by the book, in that like the joke is that Aaron wants to run the story as by the book, and then they'll play along until they not that they've gotten bored, but
They
they've
know
given me
where
enough
it's
rope that they're
going, so
gonna
they
like
know
take it
how
a
they
different way.
can. They know where it's going enough to like get off track and come back around
Yeah,
to it.
and get back to it. Yeah,
Yeah. No,
exactly.
I think I think all RPGs operate on I learned this word just because I often say like gentleman's agreement, and I needed
Mhm.
a gender neutral version of it.
Sure.
Patrician's agreement.
Okay. Well, that's a good way to put
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
I'll
so,
write that down.
yeah. So like we've needed this like all games sort of operate on this like patrician's agreement where
Hmm.
like you're going to at least follow the GM's like basic hooker premise. You
Sure,
know,
sure.
like if you're all sitting in a bar and the GM describes a dwarf coming over and pinning a poster on a wall, the party's gonna
You
go
have to
over and
read it.
read. Yeah, you have to read it. That is the bait. Like, well, my character wouldn't care about a poster on a wall. No, the basic, yeah, the social contract. At the base level, if you all agree to be it, you're gonna have to go along with some GM inanity. Like I got a full time job. I've got a podcast. I've been planning this charity event for like ever, and sometimes I don't have time to come up with a good adventure hook. Like I don't. It just like
Well, and my players need to know that like anything that I was going to come up with off the cuff is going to be worse than the thing that like that you were I don't want to you're on the rails towards, but like sure, if you want me to make it up, I'm happy to. It's going to be not that great. Like there are better options out there. You're going to have more fun if we at least somehow head in a general direction that, what I had planned for.
right.
Um
Chekhov's dwarf.
Chekhov's dwarf. That's pretty good.
That's good.
One other element about I don't know why I'm bringing this. It's not
No,
important,
that's
but
great. No, that's
talking
great.
about why I do like the modules and stuff like that. There's also an element of sort of a shared experience beyond the game that you're playing with just your players, knowing that out there somewhere there are other people who have played something not exactly the same, but maybe something similar, have maybe met some similar characters, have gone to similar places, so that one day I hope this hasn't happened to me, but I hope that one day sitting around, sitting at a bar or at some place, striking up a conversation with somebody that I know also plays D&D. Have you ever played this module? Did you ever meet so and so? Did you ever go here? Did you ever do this? And like, there's that sort of shared.
Well,
It's a
there's a
unique
shared, yeah,
experience
yeah,
to a group. It's a
yeah.
shared experience as well. It's part of that sort of, in some ways, a could be a cultural connection with somebody.
No,
And
I think
again,
that's.
it's never happened to me before, but I want it to happen
I
one
assure
day.
you will. Yeah,
Um,
I share that with like so 2.0 or 3.0 had the Temple of Elemental Evil module.
oh yeah,
That's one of my. They redid it for fifth edition, I believe.
they did. Yeah, yeah.
Um, absolutely like one of my favorite modules. I loved how like it was just this like mega dungeon, and like you'd go into the mega dungeon and then you come back and like every day something different would be going on with the town, and then like you'd have to go to like they had the little like different towns around the map where you go to there's like three different towns or whatever in the
Mhm.
Temple of Elemental Evil, and I remember just trying to get through this mega dungeon basically before like the doom meteor went off effectively, like like in Final Fantasy 7, because there's
Sure.
a
Yeah, yeah.
sort of like a
And
time limit to it that you don't
or the
know about when
moon
you're
in
first.
Majora's Mask. Yeah.
Yeah, when you don't really know. There's like you don't know, but you know because the way the story, the narrative is like going.
Hmm.
Until you actually crack open the module and you read it. But like the players all kind of slowly start to pick up that it's urgent that you get through this dungeon as quick as possible, and so you start taking risks because it's like 100 levels or something like
Yeah.
that, and you're progressing through like just some of the gnarliest encounters ever, and I just remember like that experience being awesome. And for a long time, I structured my games, even the like sort of non-module type stuff. I still structured them a little bit around that like sense of urgency mega dungeon crawl. It's just I did the like remove the mega dungeon like one step from being a dungeon.
Hmm.
Well, maybe it's not like one mega dungeon. It's a series of temples or just little
Sure.
things like that
Yeah.
where you just kind of shift it around. And but that was like in my DNA forever,
Yeah, you're
and
baked in. Yeah. Hmm.
yeah, talking to other people of like, well, oh man, we didn't even make it past like the 30th level or something, or like we freaking died to a Bahir. Bahir? How do you die to a
Where?
Bahir?
Yeah. What? Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, well, this guy gated it in, and like, and that does happen. You get this
Hmm.
like, this sort of this cultural experience, like you said. It
That's
happens.
and that you've actually touched on exactly what it's. I've heard so many other people that and having come into D&D relatively late in life, but also knowing plenty of people who've been playing for a long time and have spoken with such reverence and some of the published adventures that have
Well,
come before
Strahd,
and
Curse of
sort
Strahd
of the
is a rehash of an old
yeah,
one too. Yeah.
exactly. And plenty. I mean, a lot of the D&D stuff, the fifth edition stuff, has been rehashes of older things, and to see those conversations had sort of at arm's length, to see other folks reminisce about those shared experiences that I never got to experience. Um, I'm just trying to recreate those connections that other people are having, right? And like all I can do is do the more recent versions of
Well,
them, and so that's another reason why uh, I get into them. And then one other thought was that given that I'm relatively new to these RPGs, it's basically training ground. Like I don't create any campaigns or adventures because I don't necessarily know how, but the more of these modules that I can sort of run through, pick the things that I enjoy, like you said, where those type of mega dungeons were baked into your DNA. Identify the things that I like from them, and so that although I'm not running my own things now, that's not to say 5, 10 years from now I won't. And so
no, I mean,
there's also that training ground as well a little
well,
bit.
see, you don't think of yourself as an artist or a creator, which is funny, but your process with like the modules sounds kind of similar to with like kind of an inversion of editing and putting together the Mortal Realms podcast. Is you're sort of like operating off of like pieces and something a little bit more like logistical
Sure,
to,
yeah,
to still arrive at like creating something. And I bet you in 10 years like there's the homebrew Aaron campaign or Aaron campaign where
yeah,
it's just all these components that you've sort of assembled from all the modules you've run over the years that you've enjoyed. um,
yeah, possibly.
I think I don't harsh on it. Like we said kind of earlier on in the show. I talked about my like Halo bias and this elitism thing that I really did get mostly over. I've got a couple like eccentricities sticking around, but for the most part,
Everyone does. Yeah.
I don't. I hate bandwagon takes. I fucking despise people who like hate people getting on the bandwagon. Like I hate
Hmm.
that so much because for me the sort of the tenacity of an idea doesn't equate to worthiness. The longevity of a fan doesn't equate to the worthiness of a fan. Like how long you've been a fan of something has nothing to do with how passionate you are about something.
Mm-hmm,
You
mm-hmm.
know, like you can be like, I've loved this thing for this long, and congratulations, achievement unlocked. But the people who get into Beast of Chaos, the Beast of Chaos White Dwarf, I saw this renewed vigor for that army, and I'm like, I don't give a fuck if you've played this army since Warhammer Fantasy Battle, if you've only played it in Total Warhammer 2, if you've been playing it since AOS, or you bought a couple models, never finished it, or if you're just now getting into it. Like all I care about is that everybody loves this thing, and that
Yeah,
if it's a bandwagon, it it stops being a bandwagon if you stick around. Then you're just a fan.
sure, sure.
Everyone gets on the bandwagon somewhere. So fuck the
Everyone had to
bandwagon.
start.
It's
Yeah.
all about the welcome wagon. Like,
It's
like
what's the subreddit? Gates open, or what is it? There's the gatekeeping subreddit, but there's also gates open. Come on in subreddit or
yeah,
something like that.
yeah.
I can't
Come on
remember
in.
what it is.
Like, come on. I want more people to play the games that I love. I want more people to like. I have great taste. I'm a connoisseur of really bad taste, but I also have very great taste. Like it's
Sure.
dialectic. I love both, so I have ascertained the truth between. I
Of
have
course.
phenomenal taste. Okay.
Everyone says that about you. Everybody knows
Yeah,
that.
everyone knows this. It's he doesn't lack confidence, has the best taste. Okay. First
Incredibly
two things, yeah,
modest as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. First two things that come to mind when you hear Mephisto, um, and I have great taste. So why would I judge people for liking the things I like? Because I have good taste. So if they like the things I like, they at least have good taste in that one
Yeah.
sense,
Take the compliment.
right?
Essentially.
People like the things you like, and you know that you like good shit, and they like good shit. It's transitive. Like why the hate? I will never understand it unless there's some insecurity or fear there, and then you got some soul searching to do.
We talked about reactions from fear and how less good they are. Okay, that's not what we said.
No, I mean it's just it's a canary in a mine. It's
Mhm.
if there's a fear reaction to something, you got to go something's wrong here, and what is
Sure.
wrong. It doesn't
Mhm.
mean like their reaction is wrong. Fear is fear. You feel fear for a reason,
Yeah.
but
It's a very hard to
why?
turn fear off.
And what is again? It goes with people's emotions. Why? What's the fear? When you unearth the fear, and it's like, oh, you a racist. Well, then get the fuck out. I don't care. If it's something more banal or human, or then hey, like I've got some compassion to spare you. you know
For
uh,
sure.
it,
We're all
it
human. I get that.
yeah, I don't know. So like it's all for me, the welcome wagon, open the gates, let people play the things you love, and be a good example, be a great ambassador. And you talked about playing modules. I saw some people being snobby about playing. Well, I played the original. Fuck that. No, I identified that I played the original Elemental Evil because I have no idea what they did with it. And so if someone was about
Mhm.
to be, oh man, the new one is like this, I'm like, I don't know, man.
Sure.
I have to preempt the about to tell you I have no fucking clue what you're talking
Yeah.
about in
Yeah.
like that might happen in like two or three like chains of dialogue,
Sure. Sure. Sure.
But yeah, I think that's a good way to put a bow on it. Don't you?
I think so. I think so too. I've covered a lot of the stuff that I wanted to talk about.
Was there anything? So this is what we call the final soapbox. Anything that we
Ooh.
glossed over? Anything you want to go back to? Anything that you needed to hit? And because the organic, awesome nature of conversation just kind of goes where it
Hmm.
may.
I mean, I want to end with this, but I'll do it now because I'm thinking about it. Hey, thanks for having me on the show. How cool is that? I really appreciate it. That I've admired the work that you're doing for a long time, and but without seeming too eager, I've been eager to be on the show though. It's like, oh,
You.
how do I play this? Um, how do I negotiate this? So there's that. But let's go. But that's sort of been maybe a final thought. What other thoughts about what we've talked about before? I don't know. I feel like we might have
I
covered most of it. I
I
got nothing else to add.
I yeah, I should have had you on. Like I've had Paul on like two or three times, and I've kept trying to get like the whole crew together or whatever. And I went into
Oh, I
like
wasn't even going to bring that up. Yeah, I was gonna say, well, like, maybe next time we should get multiple people on because nobody wants to do. I'm so much better when other people talk more than I
Well,
do.
then you come
Uh,
in with the puns, and then just like, and
yes,
and you
why
just
the man?
you just throw on the pun here, and you get to look like the cool, mysterious leader guy, and just
That's my God. You've nailed you've nailed me. That's exactly what I'm going for. Am I so transparent? How can you see through me so
yeah.
easily?
I've done this a
You know,
long time. I read my guests like books at this point now.
cut to the core, man.
I
Um,
gotta ask maybe it's a self I don't know self aggrandizing question. You said that like you've never done like the live show. Did it
sure.
meet your standards? Did you know you caught me in a weird this is like what I call rare form Mephisto. The
Mm.
particular rambling like that I promise I can have more focused shows, everybody. I can.
I feel like the only Mephisto shows I've listened to or watched have been like this. This is almost exactly like the ones I can't point to exactly, this episode or that episode, but of what this is what I expected essentially. I mean,
Okay. Okay.
from the clips or episodes that I've watched, from your other online presences. That's a word, right?
Yeah,
Presences.
presences, yeah.
Um, yeah,
Presence
I
would
do.
just I think be would suffice there. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I not
You
to
got the
toot my own
you
horn
got
in that I knew
Mephisto.
what I was
Yeah,
getting into.
yeah.
Yeah.
Radcast as advertised did not disappoint.
Yeah, it does what it says on the tin. Um,
Yeah,
so no, yeah, no, this is exactly what I was hoping to get out of it. 100%.
awesome.
Um,
Well, you will have to
yeah,
come back. Whether it's just you, I know that life and new Babby and all that stuff could be So thank you so much for
such a
making the time to come
monster.
on. This has been a long time coming. I think I was more I think I was nervous, and so there's the nervous energies would pulled out the most ranting Mephisto because again I love the Mortal Realms. I think
This
you get
this dude
yeah.
nervous about this guy?
It's
Oh
not
man.
that. It's you're. I mean, you again. I mean, if there is a like a platinum, like like if like the content, pyramid, you've got like the sort of like the platinum content. Like I think the Mortal Realms is like the platinum standard. I,
I mean, I will take that compliment only insofar as I know I didn't start the Mortal Realm, so it
yeah,
doesn't actually
yeah.
apply to me because again, the Midwestern me, I can't hear you say that. I just can't. I don't know how to
Yeah,
take a
yeah,
compliment.
yeah.
So
See, Rantcast is like a gold and a half, so we're almost platinum. The fact that like when people want like they see AOS, they're like, okay, I'm gonna click on this AOS episode, and then just like 30 minutes of talking about AOS at the beginning, and then just 2 hours of like
the evolution.
everything else. And so like I take away half a star of my content for that, but honestly, I would do nothing else. I love what I do.
Yeah,
That
right. Oh, yeah, and you're good at what you do.
I think so. I think I'm the best live interviewer here. It's I know it meanders, but like you don't want to listen to like okay, and what's the next question, and
I mean, I sure don't. Yeah.
I mean that's what I love late night talk shows. That's my favorite thing is like there's a couple questions they like promote the show that they're on there to promote and then they just like get well, the best ones, the Letterman.
Mm,
Like I loved Letterman. Letterman had
mm,
this way of just like this no bullshit like late night talk show host, and like Conan O'Brien, obviously, because I'm a millennial.
mhm.
Um,
Okay, of course.
but like it's just this way of like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna promote the show, but then like it's just gonna be like a romp, just a conversation with like this like community member or this creator or like and just I took that and I morphed it with like some sports talk radio where they just have to fill air and the weird sort of permutations of conversation that happen when you're just exposed and all you
Mhm.
and you just have to talk. Where does
Sure.
the brain
Fill the
go?
space.
Yeah, where
Mhm.
does the brain go? And you get some I think you get like some authentic cross sections of humanity in those moments.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the reasons your show appeals to me is so much of the conversation or like hobby aspects of AOS are completely I don't want to say completely uninteresting to me, but fairly uninteresting to me. And maybe I'm relatively unique in that regard, in that whatever the pillars of AOS are, I partake in so very few of them. I don't really hobby at all. I mean, I put models together, but I don't really paint. Uh, I haven't played a game in years, and I don't plan on doing it anytime soon. So any sort of competitive conversation, no interest. Any sort of hobby conversation, I have again no interest. And so it's all the tertiary, not even secondary, tertiary elements of the hobby are the things that interest me, and that seems like that
Yeah.
community being one of them. That's the bread and butter of a
Well,
show.
I
So
think
for me.
I think the community is the bread and butter of AOS.
Mhm.
I think, and what you were getting into with with D&D there is that sort of communal shared experience. I mean, that's
Yeah.
for me, that's gaming. That is the strength of games as a medium. That is why, like, world peace happens either through what Mars's suggestion is. You'll have to go back and watch that episode.
Okay.
Honestly, please don't. Um, he brings out the like the. It's not that he brings out the worst in me. There's just always some weird. He's like an albatross of like my show. Like he shows up and then the bad weather shows up around. It's just weird. Like I had
Well,
technical difficulties like for the first time in 121 episodes. It took me 2 hours to go live because I had to like uninstall and reinstall. Never had to do it before.
oh God.
He's a great guy. Like don't watch the
Sure. It's
episode.
just that he's cursed and he ruins
Yeah,
everything.
he's just
That's
cursed
fine.
and
Yeah.
ruins every one of my shows. No, I love Mars. I love you, Mars. No, it's but no, the communal aspect, and I think gaming is kind of how we bring it all together. Like the more people at the metaphoric table of life throwing dice together,
Okay.
the better. You're sort of lay bare when you're just playing games. Like
Sure.
I it's when you're sharing stories and sharing culture and food and a little beverage perhaps if you straight edge some tea or coffee or water
Of course.
like the the good Himalayan water or whatever. I don't know how you make water interesting. I have no idea. Um, but I respect people's aversion to vices. So whatever the straight edge connoisseur would drink. That you're sharing that. You're playing games. You're sharing stories. You're kind of getting to meet people in the various inversions of themselves and idealized versions of themselves.
Hmm.
Like people tell you a lot without telling you much with like the characters that they play, the armies they gravitate towards, the paint schemes. And you don't know how to put all that coded stuff together per se, but you get to ask them about it. And then when you ask
Yeah.
them
Yeah.
about it, they kind of tell you and when it's about games, you learn a little bit more than if you ask someone like say their politics. I can recite logic and stuff I've read and I've adopted to like communicate the things I kind of believe and feel, but
Hmm.
like who's ever been right about 100% of stuff?
I don't
It's
want to meet the person.
no, what a boring
Uh,
individual.
when it
Um,
comes to get people can bring their let their guards down, bring the walls down when it comes to gaming. When you get to what's quote unquote more serious topics, there's always a certain element of guard or
performance and
distance between the two. Yeah.
yeah, there's always a
Um,
performance and insulation. Like they have to perform their archetype. And it's sort of ironic because how many people play the rogue and suddenly they're a werewolf who's dragging around a tree to fight with and they're not doing roguely stuff or
sure.
the barbarian with the heart of gold who just wants to fish all day and like you start to see these as people's permutations of their they gravitate towards an archetype because there's some power projection there, but then as they're playing it the other parts of themselves that come out, or as they're interacting with other people, like these human moments that you get when we're playing games together. That's what it's
Yeah.
about for me.
It, when you're talking, maybe it's irony or some other terminology for it, but that as we play at war, we strive towards peace.
Right.
Um,
Well, yeah, yeah. I'm not adding anything more. Watch the Mortal or listen to. Well, I guess where can people catch you?
yeah, so you can find, I mean, you just go to themortalrealms.com and that's a hub to find all of the Mortal Realms network shows and content. But I think it's and anything any place where you can find content creators. If you look up the Mortal Realms, you're probably gonna find us there. But the website's a great place
Yeah,
to
and it's
start.
gonna
Or
it's
oh,
gonna
go
be at
ahead.
the top of the page because they're the best they are at what they do. So it should be
That's
right
true.
there.
But if you want to hang out, come find us at themortalrealms.com/discord, where we're hanging out all day, every day. That,
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much for
yeah.
coming on tonight. I had a blast. This was
Well,
a great
thank you.
conversation, and you'll have to get back on before too long, man. Um,
Absolutely. Say the word.
all right, good night, man. And chat
You
gang,
too.
remember you're the show within the show. The reason I do this thing: drink your milk, pay your taxes. Most important, be excellent to
My
yourselves and each other.
taxes.
Huh?
I just remind taxes. I gotta do that.
Look at that. Look, this show changing people's lives. Good night, everybody.